It took Westside 12 years to reach 500 crores. Zara is sitting at about 2000 crores. And it took you just 4 years to go from 0 to 500 crores. That is insane, man.
Snitch is not something that was born just 4 years back, right? I've been in the apparel industry for almost 17 years now.
Fast fashion brand Snitch has raised 110 crore rupees in its Series A funding round.
Mr. Siddharth Dungarwal, the founder of Snitch.
And I'm the founder and CEO at Snitch.
It appears like you are a fast fashion company, but somehow your clothes are extremely high quality. It appears like all your clothes are expensive, but they are so cheap.
Yeah.
India's fastest growing fast fashion brand for men.
Why should girls have all the fun? With Snitch, we are a trend-driven fashion brand. Even if men start wearing ghagras tomorrow, we will manufacture a ghagra, right? Apparel is one of the most easiest business to start.
Really?
But it is the most difficult one to scale.
Fashion brands are easier to start but difficult to scale. How did you still end up in fashion?
Revenue contribution at that time was almost 50% just from the category of boxers.
What? So you were a boxer company first. So 200 crores in profits with 40 stores comes down to just 5 crores
Yeah.
in profit. Is Zara doing something wrong? What is the logic behind this magical tool which is able to tell you how much revenue you could generate if you open up a store in XYZ location? That is insane. How was your Shark Tank experience?
So over the last 30 months, we've grown 12x.
12x.
Yeah.
Do these sharks really spend time with you, or does their team spend time with you? How does it work?
So I'll tell you, to be honest,
Before we move ahead, let me thank our partners Odoo for supporting this podcast. People running a fashion store isn't just about selling styles, it's about managing chaos. For a trendy brand like Snitch, stock mismanagement, piled up orders, and scheduling issues can lead to lost sales and lost revenue. This is exactly where Odoo's point of sale comes in. With Odoo point of sale, shop owners get real-time inventory tracking and they never lose a sale because of stock mismanagement. They can also view past orders and easily search by customer or product. Odoo also helps in managing multiple cashier accounts with secure batches, scheduling the staff shifts, and tracking the hours worked by each employee. It also helps you run promotions on your e-commerce store, sync them with your retail locations, and set up store-specific offers like loyalty programs or special coupons. Odoo's POS system ensures smooth cash flow by synchronizing cash counters and tracking daily sales across all payment methods, whether that's cash, card, or online. And with Odoo's self-service option, customers can order via kiosks or their phones absolutely seamlessly. So whether you run a flagship store or an online shop, Odoo helps you stay in complete control. The best part is that your first Odoo application is free for life with hosting and support. So if you want to run your store in the most efficient way possible, and if you want to maximize your profits through efficiency, check out the link in the description and start your journey with Odoo point of sale now. Good morning, Siddharth.
morning.
Welcome to the Indian Business Podcast.
Absolutely. Fascinated to be here. I've been your, greatest fan. So happy to be doing this with you.
Thank you, bro. I am a very big fan of Snitch, and like I just told you off camera as well, I was just about to go and do a podcast with Arvind Kejriwal sir, and I couldn't find a good pant. और मेरे पास ना रेमन का ब्लेजर था, बट उसका एग्जैक्ट सेम पिच ब्लैक फॉर्मल पैंट मुझे मिला नहीं. बट मैंने बोला एक बार स्निच जाके देखता हूँ. एंड ब्रो आई फाउंड सच एन अमेजिंग पैंट. सच एन अमेजिंग पैंट. अभी मैं डिस्क्राइब नहीं कर सकता उसको कैसे, बट आपको शायद पता होगा. इट्स पिच ब्लैक एंड मेरे पास एक डॉग है, तो उसके जो बाल है ना वो भी उस पर अटकते नहीं है. ठीक है. एंड इट्स गॉट दिस ब्यूटीफुल लस्टर विच ऑलमोस्ट सूट्स द ब्लेजर. And it is so comfortable कि मैंने रेमन के पैंट को ditch करके I said, I'm going to wear this only. And I decided that after I come back, I'll just buy 5 pieces of it.
Yeah.
Okay. And similarly, when I was going to Bali, and this is when I encountered Snitch for the first time. Earlier, I used to shop from Zara. And I was like, हाँ ठीक है, Zara चले गए. It is always ahead in fashion. And we would just get clothes out of there. But then I started to see my bills and they were exorbitant.
Yeah.
उसके बाद Digvijay told me that you should go to Snitch to shop for Bali. And I went over there and हमने कुछ 10 या 12 कपड़े उठाए. And bro, bill, I don't think it touched even 20K.
Yeah.
Whereas had it been Zara, I cannot expect a bill below 30,000 rupees.
Yeah. Maybe even more. Yeah.
Maybe even more. और वो भी ऐसे कपड़ों के लिए ना जिसको देख के आपको समझ में आ जाता है कि ये लॉन्ग लास्टिंग तो 100% नहीं है.
Correct.
But somehow, I don't know if you're a fast fashion company, because it appears like you are a fast fashion company, but somehow your clothes are extremely high quality.
Yeah.
It appears like all your clothes are expensive, but they are so cheap.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand that when the likes of H&M and Zara are not able to produce or are not willing to produce high quality clothes at dirt cheap price, and even they are finding a hard time making a profit in India, you make high quality clothes at affordable rates and you're profitable.
Yeah.
And in this entire podcast, I just want to know, how the hell did you do it?
Okay, I'll try to cover as much as I can, but thanks for giving that sort of boost. I'm sure folks in the office would appreciate this. I think it is really simple. So Snitch is not something that was born just 4 years back, right? I've been in the apparel industry for almost 17 years now. Started with a very small retail store, then got into trading, then got into manufacturing. And 2020 is when we launched Snitch. Again, it'll be wrong if I say that from day one was our quality the best. We were not. To be very honest, I mean, consumers who've bought us maybe bought Snitch products year 1 and 2 may not feel so, because we were very, very nascent. We did not really invest in a lot of R&D. But as the company matures, then you start taking those learnings, those feedback mechanisms. I think especially during the Shark Tank period, right? Orders literally spiked up a lot. We were getting insane number of orders, and you had to sort of make a lot of products, to boost sales. At that period, I think we sort of got back in terms of the quality that we wanted to produce. Hence, we even faced a lot of backlash, right? And that's the day we took a call that we may go slower, but we will make sure that the product quality meets at least, the standards that we've set for ourselves. And that's when we actually went, deep into the stages of finding the right yarn, finding the right sort of, color that should be used, and what is the sort of dyeing process, and how many washes will it last. I think apparel is one of the most easiest business to start.
Really?
But it is the most difficult one to scale.
Okay.
And the reason is, one is inventory. Second is, how do you sort of add categories for growth? And third, what are the right sort of categories that you want to penetrate into, right? For us, we were very sure from day one, razor focused sharpness, and that we will just be a men's apparel brand. Did not diversify into women, kids, etc. Usually a lot of brands which were not so successful was because they started diversifying too early. It's not that we will never do women. We may do women, but I think you have to become a master in one first. And I think the TAM is very, very large for us. So we chose men as a niche, and then went deeper into what are the traits of men. And then started, building the entire thesis around, what is the sort of product line, how many, new styles will you launch, how many, what is the depth of every SKU that you will launch, and how will you build this entire business, right? Again, I mean, we could discuss this in detail once we, sort of get deeper into the conversation. But, just to even imagine, right, traits of men. Men are someone who like quick, snappy things, right? You have to go out for a dinner, you would go for a beard trim, a slight haircut, you look fresh and new. That's very snappy. You wear a perfume, you smell good instantly. You wear clothes, you look good instantly. If you ask a guy to apply, one sort of cream for 30 days to see 2% difference, he's going to quit day 3. So one we understood was men like instant gratification, and instant gratification categories is what we were at. Right? Anything that a person wears and feels motivated, confident, and looks good, you've cracked the game.
Wonderful. Siddharth, I want to go back to your story because, like you said, fashion brands are very easy to start, but very difficult to scale.
Yeah.
Okay. But you still chose to be in fashion.
Yeah.
So I want to understand, where did the inspiration for fashion come in the first place? Because from the outset, as a consumer, I'm a terrible shopper.
Yeah.
I don't understand fashion. And my fashion sense back then was so bad that I used to wear red color shirt and um, yellow color pants to college. Okay. So you could imagine. So because I come from that kind of a terrible fashion sense wala background, when I look into a store, I see so many SKUs and I see so many sizes. And I'm just flabbergasted by the fact that somebody out there is thinking that this piece is going to sell when I can't even imagine what occasion would I choose to wear a particular shirt or a particular pant. But then once I moved to Bombay, I just realized that every piece of cloth has a purpose, has an occasion, has a season. And then there is also this fashion trend that the world follows, knowingly or unknowingly, by getting inspired from Bollywood or pop culture and so on and so forth. And then I began to understand that there are just too many variables that one person has to take into consideration. And then there are so many stratas of audience in India. And you have to your product is basically a culmination of too many data points, which eventually make it to the store. And then there is wastage and so on and so forth. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around how do you exactly start a fashion brand? So I want to go back to your story. And because you said fashion brands are easier to start but difficult to scale, how did you still end up in fashion?
So I'll tell you one key data point to look at, right? If you look at all the successful brands which were not driven by large companies, example of a Manyavar, example of a Rare Rabbit, they have become successful because they've been into this for almost 15 years plus, right? It is a business that takes a lot of deep understanding in terms of, product, the right manufacturer, how do you build a very, very strong supply chain? It's a pure play supply chain business. Even if you think of, just Snitch as an example, like when I started, I used to sell clothes in retail. So it was barely, half of this place, which was barely about 350 square foot, wherein I used to sell products in retail. So I was in a morning college shift, and post-college I used to run this store.
That was your store?
Yeah, my store.
Okay.
This was back in 2009.
Okay.
So I was in a morning college shift, post-college I used to run this store, wherein I used to sell surplus clothing. So I used to procure these leftovers from factories, bring them to the retail store and sell them. Since I was in college, I could attract a lot of youth. And that's when I understood what do people buy, right? And once you're in that seat looking at what people buy for different occasions, you know what is the right sort of inventory you need to get into the store, right? Like if there is Christmas, you've already seen what people bought last Christmas. So you have some data points saying that these are the colors, these are the sort of products that people will buy during Christmas. Same when it is a season of summer, same, So every occasion, we exactly know what is it that a consumer would want.
Okay. Can you give me some examples of the same? Like I'm talking about the college kid Siddharth, who then figured out using observation, because this is exactly what Vedant told me about Ravi sir, that because he was a salesman for a very long time, he was able to interact with his customers and he was able to figure out what exactly is the customer wanting, even without the customer being able to comprehend what he wants. Okay. But that's still shadi. Like the subset is too less. But then when you're in college, the occasions are too many, the people are too many, and their tastes are too many because they also come from diverse backgrounds.
Correct.
So how did that young Siddharth find patterns to then understand what is going to sell and what will not?
So there are two things. One is the obvious, which you know what is going to sell in what sort of season. Second is the sort of risk-taking ability that you build, right? This is the product that I will sell. And, that sort of is trend setting. That is what you want to, or you believe will sell, because you've seen some data points, that these products are selling in China, these products are selling in Europe, and usually those trends come a little later in India.
Okay.
So using all of these, it became much more easier for me to then decide what are the sort of products. Snitch never was there in my mind, right? I didn't even know the meaning of the word snitch when I actually registered it. I'm just a BCom graduate. So, did that college phase, then, was stuck with one sort of issue wherein, there was a buyer who was ready to sell out a fabric. There was a factory which was ready to sell out their fabric and I had a buyer ready. All I had to do is do a transaction between the two and I was making about 2.5 lakhs at the age of 20. That was big money for me. But I didn't have that sort of investment, borrowed it from my friends and family and did that transaction. But to my bad luck, there was an audit in the factory that was supposed to ship out these fabrics. And it took almost 30 to 35 days for those, sort of stocks to move out. By then, the customer who was ready to buy denied, saying, "Sid, it's too late. I don't need this fabric anymore." And I was basically stuck with that fabric. Didn't have place to keep it, kept it at a friend's garage, made real small swatches of those fabrics and distributed to
Made what?
swatches, just a small cutting of every fabric that I had, and distributed to all the retailers that I knew. There was one particular retailer in Bombay who had about 17, 18 stores back then. He called me up and he was like, "Sid, the fabric is fabulous. Can you make shirts out of them?" I was stunned because I didn't know anything about production. He just told me, "Look, the fabric is good. If you could make or convert them into shirts, I may bail you out of this situation." At that point is when, the real hustle started. The large manufacturing units were not ready to do that very small MOQ. Found a very small unit in Bangalore, sat there for almost 6 to 8 weeks just to understand the whole process of production. End of 8 weeks, designed these 300 pieces as samples first and shipped it to Bombay. Over the weekend, all those shirts flew off the counter, ended up converting that entire batch of fabric worth 25 lakhs into shirts and made 6.5 lakhs while I was making 2.5 lakhs selling the fabric.
Okay.
That's when I realized manufacturing is a much, bigger sort of a business.
Okay.
And that is when I ventured into manufacturing. And from 2012 until 2019, we were sort of running a buying house wherein we used to design, manufacture and deliver products without owning any factory. Every factory that we work with even today is 100% exclusive to us.
Okay.
And we'll come back to, those why are we exclusive or why do we choose to work exclusively with factories. And, end of 2019 is when the thought of Snitch came in.
ओके सिद्धार्थ, ये जो नंबर्स है ना, मुझे एक और बार प्लीज बता दो कि 300 शर्ट्स आपने मैन्युफैक्चर करे एंड दिस कॉस्टेड यू अबाउट 25 lakhs?
No, I mean 300 shirts would have costed me roughly about 400 per shirt. So that's
400 per shirt.
yeah,
That's roughly about, let's say, 1.2 lakhs if I'm not wrong.
yeah.
ठीक है, ये 1.2 lakhs का जो शर्ट का बैच बना, this then got sold for?
I had sold it for about 450,
Okay,
and the retailer must have sold it for maybe 1200.
1200. And that is when you understood what?
That, while I was selling just the fabric, I was making say about 10 rupees per meter.
Okay.
But when I converted that fabric into a shirt, I made $50 per shirt.
So you understood the importance of value addition.
Absolutely.
Got it. Now take me back to that store of yours, because I'm trying to understand the fashion entrepreneur's acumen from that college experience of yours. You said that, in summer people buy this kind of
Yeah.
shirts. In winter people buy these kind of clothes.
Yeah.
But then there are so many colors, so many sizes. Can you take me back to those experiences where you were able to pick, oh, you know what, these 3 shirts will 100% sell,
Yeah.
which are true even to this day?
I think luckily we are in the men's fashion space, right? And there are not too many things. There are very few men who will wear a red shirt with a yellow pant, right?
Correct.
Men have obvious traits, so it becomes much more easier for us to understand, what is it that someone's going to wear. But there are a certain products that we want to, be the first person to set that trend and make things work.
Okay.
And that is what keeps us, defined. And apart from the regular sort of brands that were always available. 2-3 things that you have to always think of is, one, while curating a product, who is the sort of person that you're targeting to? What is his traits like? Is he a college goer? Is it the person who likes to party a lot? Is it a person who is working a lot? Is going to be in office? And then start building products according to occasions. From morning to evening, there are, 3-4 things that you will obviously see. As soon as you get up, you may be hitting the gym. So there's sportswear there. What are you going to sell to a guy who's, hitting the gym? Post that, you're going to either go to college or go to office. What is the sort of clothing that you will wear? And from there, you start to understand that what is the sort of share in one's wardrobe that you could, sort of capture, and keep building categories towards that.
Got it. So it would be gym, college, party, and I would also say hostel.
Yeah,
Which are
hostel.
basic clothes.
It could be occasions like, there's a wedding season. These days concerts are there. So, people do buy a lot more products for concerts. So, you should just be ahead of time and realize that what is the next big trend.
Got it. So the first thing that you did is you understood what are the scenarios in which your customer would require clothes. And then
Yeah.
you define these scenarios as gym, college, party, hostel, and let's say something like a
Yeah.
concert or a wedding.
Yeah.
Now, after you zero down on, let's say, college,
Yeah.
because gym, it's again pretty obvious. People are not very fashion sensitive when it comes to gym. They would just wear a black or white, it would still be fine.
Yeah.
But when it comes to college, now that's a very big subset.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur, back then, without the Snitch experience, how did you go about choosing the clothes to understand that this is going to sell and this is going to be my bet of experiment?
So, I mean, one good thing that I've learned is always start very, very small, right? So, I never used to procure like 100 pieces in one single design. It was always 10 pieces or 20 pieces. So that my risk-taking ability is higher and the chances of that stock not selling is lower. And plus, chances of having a dead stock is lower.
Okay.
So, starting very, very small gave me that ability, and I could immediately know that if I've gotten 10 products, 3 are super hot selling products, 2 are mediocre, and 5 may, be something that I will have to live with for a while or maybe sell at a discounted price.
Okay.
So you have to really identify and see what are these 3 products that sold really well, why did they sell really well, and it's not necessary that this is selling well today. It may sell well, maybe 6 months later also. So making the right sort of quantity or buying the right sort of quantity is very, very important.
Okay.
So whenever you start really, really small so that you understand the pattern and then start doubling down. And it's very difficult to sort of know why is it that, these products are selling versus this is not selling. I may have a gut feel that, these will really sell well, but often, it doesn't. And that is why you should always go by data and not always by gut.
Got it. So these 3, 2, and 5 designs that you
Yeah.
picked, were the 3 designs like basics, like black, white, blue, or how was it?
So again, depends on the sort of season it is at. Usually, because it's menswear, it is going to be these common colors. But during seasons, we've seen, last year mauve was a color that sold the highest for us. Like any shirt or t-shirt in that color was flying off the counter. So you should know what are the right sort of colors. You should know what are the right sort of silhouettes that will sell. Like oversized t-shirt is a new silhouette. Never existed, but suddenly came and, now you see everyone in oversized t-shirts. We were one of the first brands who started cohort sets for men, which is a paired clothing. Saw a lot of brands in Europe and China manufacturing these and people adopting to it. Starting really small there also gave us that sort of confidence to then build a new category itself from cohorts, right? And there have been instances like these in every single category that we've launched.
Got it. So what you're saying is color, silhouette, and trends from Europe and
Absolutely.
China will help you determine these things.
Yeah.
Got it. So now I understood how did the scrappy entrepreneur Siddharth think while he was
Yeah.
back in college. Let's now go from the scrappy entrepreneur Siddharth to now a seasoned entrepreneur Siddharth and the wisdom lessons that you would like to provide to an entrepreneur who's just starting out. So in the next 1.5 hours, let's try and decode a blueprint from the wisdom that you acquired from Snitch on how to go from 0 to 10 crore rupees.
Got it.
Okay? Let's start with the Snitch story, derive lessons, and then derive call to actions. Okay? Let's start with the Snitch story. After you did this value addition thing, you understood that you're making 50 rupees a unit as compared to 10 rupees a unit.
Yeah.
Then what happened?
So then I got into full-fledged manufacturing. So from 2012 until late 2019, I was running a buying house wherein we used to design, we used to manufacture and deliver for brands across the domain, right? Done productions for large brands as well as very small sort of, family-owned businesses. We were like a one-stop solution for them. So if you decided to start a brand, and if you would have come to us, we would have first spoken about what is the sort of, customer base that you want to cater to, what is the sort of price point that you want to sell a product in, what are the categories that you want to do, and then curate a collection basis our, trend analysis, saying that, these are the products that we could design for you and manufacture as well as deliver. And that's how we started that entire business. 7 years, scaled that business to almost 70-80 crore per annum sort of a business. But back of the mind, always had a thought of starting something of my own, right? That's when the idea of Snitch came in. I was just sitting one day and thinking that I've been doing this for 10 years. Every brand that I've been working with is following one traditional pattern, which is making collection season wise. There is a summer collection, there is a winter collection, or maybe spring, summer, autumn, winter. And every brand is following the same pattern. While brands like H&M and Zara were coming into India and disrupting the traditional model of business, right? Just asked myself, why aren't Indian brands doing this? Understood that the supply chain is broken. You have to be somewhat vertically integrated to sort of build a good fashion brand. That was the thesis behind starting Snitch. So typically, if you look at any traditional brands, right, they might take anything between 8 months to 36 months to even decide what is the sort of collection that they're going to launch, what is the sort of designs, where will they manufacture, what is the quantity that they will do, what is the price point, and the entire supply chain was very, very broken, right? Because of the complexities that they've created over so many years. While we could do it within 25 to 30 days today.
Got it.
And that's a very, very strong differentiator, so that any trend that we spot on, we are able to bring that out within 30 days, test it, and then scale before others could catch.
Got it. Siddharth, let's talk about the supply chain first and then try to understand the nuances behind it. Can you take me from the beginning till the end, which is, I would consider the starting point to be the production of yarn, all the way to the piece of cloth being sold to the customer?
Yeah.
Walk me through the entire supply chain.
It would first be design, then would be procurement, then would be a sampling stage, then it will be various R&Ds that you want to do with the product.
Like?
Then testing, normal an FPT report and a GPT report, which will actually tell you if you rub this garment for 2,000 times, will it last, or will it get pilling, or will the color fade off? Will it shrink? If it will shrink, how much will it shrink? All those details are found through these reports. And then, you decide upon which factory is the best to manufacture this product and what is the sort of MOQ you want to order this for. So there are two sort of procurements that you could do. One is a job work. Second is an FOB order. Job work is largely you are procuring all the raw materials, finding a supplier, finding a factory that could manufacture that at a fixed cost. Right? If I have to manufacture a shirt, maybe I will pay 150 rupees. He has to just, sort of use his factory to manufacture it, the stitching process, the packing, ironing, etc. That's one side of the supply chain. The second is I go to a large buying house. I tell them this is the tech pack. This is the sort of product that I want. They will then figure out all the raw materials. They will figure out which factory will manufacture, and then the cost of that may be approximately 8 to 10% higher because they will obviously have their own margins.
Got it. FOB order का मतलब क्या है, bro?
So FOB order largely is that you've given an outright purchase, whereas this job work is something which is more like you've procured all the raw materials and then given to a supplier.
So there is design, procurement, sampling, R&D, where the testing happens. For example, if you rub the fabric 2,000 times, will the fabric deteriorate?
Yeah.
Then you've got the factory where you put out an MOQ saying that minimum order quantity is 1,000 units or 10,000 units or whatever. And then it goes to the wholesalers?
Depends. You could do wholesalers, you could do multi-brand outlets, you could do direct to consumer. There are various touch points.
Got it. Then it goes into the retail channel, whether that's wholesaler or the retailer or D2C. Got it. And you mentioned buying house एक है और दूसरा है कि आप जॉब वर्क करा लो किसी फैक्ट्री से, ठीक है. और इन दोनों में सिर्फ 8 से 10% का फर्क है.
10 to 15% roughly.
10 to 15%.
In your cost of goods.
ठीक है. Let's start with the design process, Siddharth. I spoke to one of the Urbani guys also. That they've got, I think, 1,200 designs or something like that. I was like, how do you do it? Yeah. And then he mentioned some very complex data scraping process on how they go about it and how they predict designs. Please walk me through this process.
So, with us earlier, we were very, very manual. So, we used to spot trends, maybe, looking at websites around the globe. Plus, there is, an institute called WGSN, which largely works upon the future trends, read those sort of analysis. And then, even look at celebrities or maybe large influencers, and then curate products. For example, first you have to think of a category. Baggy denims were not being sold 5 years before. It was only skinny denims. Suddenly, a lot of celebrities started wearing baggy denims. A lot of brands in the Europe and China started producing baggy denims, and that's why baggy denims are in trend today, right? So you have to be very sharp at observing these points, and that is how we started. Today, we've built our own scraping tool again, which could scrape around everything that you want to actually look at. You could look at the top keywords that are trending on Google. You could look at Instagram hashtags which are trending. You could look at global brands. You could look at WGSN reports. So you could
WJSN.
WGSN.
Okay. GSN.
Yeah, that's again an institute. So we could probably scrape everything that we want, and the tool automatically curates a mood board for the design team to work upon, right?
You build this in-house?
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But if I were to be a starter,
Yeah.
can I buy a subscription which can help me scrap through this data?
I think there are a lot of tools which are readily available, which is as low as, I think, 10,000 rupees a month.
Okay. Do you happen to know some names?
I don't remember, but I'm sure, even a chat GPT could solve this today.
I'll find it and put it on the screen.
Yeah. No, I mean, even if you ask chat GPT today, what is going to trend, it's going to scrape everything that it knows and give you an answer.
Got it. So if you have to figure out your design, it's going to be a function of data scraping, which is going to involve keywords, hashtags, global trends, and WGSN Institute.
Yeah. And then we marry it with our data, which is what was it like last time, same period, what was the sort of products that were selling, what are the common trades between the two, and then decide upon which are the ones that we are betting higher on and which are the ones that we are going to bet lower on, right? We look at almost 20, 30 data points across every product.
Okay.
Like if it is a check shirt, how many inches of checks is it that sold well last time versus this time? If it was a collar, was it a button down collar or a spread collar? Did shirts with pocket do well or without pocket? So there are certain data points that we know, obviously, from the sort of historical data that we have over the last 4-5 years. Use them with the current sort of trend and then curate a collection accordingly.
Siddharth, you spoke about choosing the category carefully. Like I was speaking to Vishal from Biryani by Kilo,
Yeah.
and he told me that देखो अगर आपको category choose करना है ना तो 2-3 चीजें ध्यान में रखो. The first thing that you have to keep in mind is it has to be a category that is very, very regular.
Absolutely.
For example, Chinese is now very, very regular. Biryanis are very, very regular because you can just count on your fingertips 4 or 5 occasions where you would have a biryani specifically, right? And then you also mentioned that this has to be a category which can scale very, very quickly. For example, a chart is quite difficult to scale as compared to a biryani. So he said, after you've understood which category is going to scale and which category is growing in terms of market share, then you identify which category does not have brands which can command trust. For example, in Chinese about 3 to 4 years back, there was mainland China and that's it. But then we realized that affordability का issue है, taste का issue है, 50 और चीज़ें हैं.
Consistency का है.
तो उन्होंने बोला देखो चाइनीज़ एक बहुत अच्छा कैटेगरी है जो अगले 10 साल में बढ़ने वाला है. एंड देन धीरज फ्रॉम जंबो किंग टोल्ड मी दैट देखो हर कैटेगरी में 2 बड़ा ब्रांड बन सकता है. सो इफ देयर इज वन ब्रांड ओवर देयर, इट्स नॉट अ थ्रेट, इट्स एन अपॉर्चुनिटी बिकॉज नाउ देयर इज अ स्पेस फॉर अनदर ब्रांड टू कम इन. So I've understood that if I were to choose a category in food, my blueprint has 3 steps. Find something that's regular, find something that has a higher ticket size so that it can accommodate for margins as we scale, and most importantly, find those categories where there is lack of trust, either due to the existing brands or due to lack of brands in the first place.
So I will add in another very important point that you have to always build for is agility.
Agility.
You should be very, very agile when it comes to your supply chain. That can this be converted into something else which is trending very, very soon without being bothered about what is the sort of dead inventory that you hold in other categories, right?
Can you give me an example?
For example, denim is a category, and baggy, skinny, bootcut, etc. are the subcategories within it. For example, if you've decided that I want to start a denim brand, then you would obviously look at data points which are readily available and say I will make 30% baggy denims, 20% skinny, 20% boot cut, maybe 20% straight fit, and then sort of decide upon the sort of styles that you will make. Say there are obvious colors that you will make, there are key elements that you would want to add, which becomes an identification to your brand. And then also, how will you sell these products with that great sort of aspiration that you want to bring upon? You need to be agile, saying that you have betted larger on baggy denims. What if the trend shifts and suddenly bootcut denims are selling higher, right? If you are stuck with that MOQ issue, saying that I've manufactured so many baggy denims, and now for you to pivot and manufacture larger sort of bootcut denims will be an issue because you'll have obvious cash flow issues. So you need to be really, really smart, and that agility that you have to sort of inculcate from day one, that I'm going to go really slow, learn from data points, and then start scaling. And I need to, at any given point, not hold inventory which is more than, say, 60 days or 90 days.
Got it. Does this MOQ problem happen because people are often lured by margins? Because अगर 1000 में अगर आपको मान लो 10% मार्जिन है तो 10,000 में लोगों को दिख रहा है कि 30-40% मार्जिन है. Is that the reason why entrepreneurs get tempted to?
Not really. I think it is a problem with the entire infrastructure itself, right? There are very, very large manufacturers who come in with so much of investment that they need certain MOQs for their batches to run. While, there are very, very small manufacturing units where they might not be skilled enough or they may not be compliant enough to sort of, suit you because you need basic compliances, you need basic, sort of machineries to do it. So finding the right sort of manufacturer is very, very difficult in India today.
Okay. How do you find a great manufacturer?
I think the number one thing is you need to trust that guy is like a co-owner and is, buying the story that you're selling. Like when I started, the factory that I went on to the first time, I was manufacturing 2,000 shirts for him, with him, back in 2009. Till date, he's one of my largest supplier, and today manufactures over 1 lakh units per month for me. He has always believed in my vision. He has always invested in his manufacturing unit to upgrade it. Basis the sort of belief that I've, built upon certain period. And then, he's almost like a partner today who's working with us very, very closely in terms of what next, what is the machinery upgradation that you want to do. And we've built these factories so agile that today my shirt manufacturing unit could also make pajamas. My denim manufacturing units could also make, cargo pants or chinos. Because the machinery used is very, very similar. It is just the skill that you have to develop in terms of the laborers who work there. So today when we speak about working with manufacturers exclusively, the advantage that we hold, one, we are solving a lot of problems for the factories, right? If you're a manufacturer, you might have 8 months of full capacity utilization. 4 months, you may be, out of that threshold and you may burn money, right? We went to manufacturer. We said, look, I'm going to cover you up for 12 months. Even if it is a peak season or not, I'm going to pay you this minimum amount of, money for so many pieces being produced. One, we solved that entire headache for him of not being dependent or not be thinking about, capacity utilization. 2, if he's working with 7-8 different brands, every time a new brand gives him an order, he has to change the entire SOP that has been, because every brand will have their own SOPs. We've standardized that, saying this is one single SOP which you have to work upon.
Okay.
3, we do a lot of skill development inside the manufacturing unit itself. While it comes to upgrading their, labor skills, upgrading their machineries, etc., we help them do all of that. And 4, the factory has to just look at the basic compliances and, pay wages at the right time. Everything else is done by our teams. So that sort of solves everything for him, and it's a pure play partnership that we do.
Got it. You mentioned something about a single SOP.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
So every brand has their own SOPs, right? Like we as a brand, we use one standard label, for every product that we manufacture. there is a single tag. Even if you look at global fast fashion brands, you'll see a very, very similar trait because speed increases once you have the right sort of set of label tags, etc. You're sorted for at least a certain period of time. You don't need to keep changing. While traditional brands and brands which are at higher price points who want to really sell aspiration would keep tweaking with their label tags with every single collection that they launch, which adds complexities to the factory because he has to again sort of do samples for that, again has to run through the company. The company will come back and say these are the changes, so it is too time consuming. That is just one aspect of a garment, right? Now imagine there is thread. What sort of thread to be used, which is the brand, so we've standardized that. Fusing, what is the sort of fusing to be used? So every garment requires different sort of fusing. You can't put one fusing in all the garments. You'll have either bubbles or it may be too stiff, etc. So we've standardized that. Washing process, we've standardized that. So every element needs to be standardized, and there's a set of SOP that we've derived now saying this is the factory which can produce this at its best quality, and that is why we choose to give it to this manufacturer.
Got it. So if I were to summarize this, the basic theme says that the manufacturer needs to act like a co-owner of your brand.
Yeah.
And the way that is done is that you work with them to design easier SOPs so that their job becomes easier. Number two, you help them with skill development. And this is something that Japanese companies often practice with their partners, whereby they help them with skill development. They help them with debt also sometimes, which makes it easier for the partner to trust you and to deliver their best. And you also mentioned compliances and wages. If they can comply with 1, 2, 3 compliances and they can also make sure that all the workers are paid on time, that's a great green flag whereby you can choose that manufacturer. Having said that, Siddharth, is there like a website where we can actually go and look up all these manufacturers?
I think today it's become much more easier because these factories have started promoting themselves on Instagram, right?
Okay.
Like you will keep finding them in every 10 or 15 scrolls that you make saying that, hey, I'm a manufacturer, I make t-shirts for so and so, etc. Now the problem again is because he's out on the internet and sort of showing it to the whole world, how do you trust him that he will not exclusively work with you? So you have to start really slow, start small by taking say 10% of his capacity and then build that trust over a period of time, saying that over a period of time, if the product that he's manufacturing are matching my standards, there are no customer complaints, there are no sort of red flags that I see, I will start scaling this manufacturer, and then once I utilize say 90% of it, then I will go to another one. But again, the complexity of apparel is so large that every category requires a different sort of factory. Like t-shirts, there are certain sort of machineries and certain sort of areas where you would find them, right? Like Tirupur, Ludhiana are the obvious places. For woven, it is different. For denims, it is different. So you have to first choose the category and then start looking at the sort of factory that you want to work.
Got it. Now let's go back to category selection. Manufacturer का मुझे बहुत clear हो गया कि आपका co-owner होना चाहिए. Your SOP has to be easier. It has to be more standardized. Skill development needs to happen with the manufacturer, and then compliances and wages are very, very important. And then how do you find them? Just go and say manufacturers of denim.
Look, I keep telling people, right? Consumer businesses can't be built on an Excel sheet or in an office. You will have to go out there, find 1, 5, 10, 20, 50 manufacturers unless you find the right one.
Is there an auditing company that can help us understand the compliances of these manufacturers so that they can give them a green flag? Because going to a manufacturer and going deep into their factory to understand the nuances of compliances and wages is going to be quite difficult.
So I'll tell you honestly, when you're starting off, that's not the greatest thing that you should be bothered about. The first thing is, can you make the right product? Compliances can be solved during the go, right? You could catch hold of any agency and tell them, start working with this factory and make it compliant.
Now let's go back to, and for design, you mentioned that keywords, hashtags, global trends, and WGSN. Siddharth, can you tell me the top 3 or 4 categories that an entrepreneur can start with right away? Like you mentioned, for every category, the processes are different.
Yeah.
The manufacturing costs are also different, and the supply chain is also different. Then we'll come back to why the supply chain is broken. Just like Vishal said, Chinese, biryani, and burgers is a growing category. What would be your top 3 picks in fashion industry which is blowing up?
So I think in terms of category, it is obvious that t-shirts is number one. Number two would be cargo pants now because they're trending. Number three would be denims because they're they're going to sell 365 days.
Got it. Anything else that you'd like to add? Let's make it top 5 then.
I know. I mean, then it covers everything. Like you could add shirts, you could add chinos. But again, they are a little more complex and have MOQ issues.
Got it. ठीक है. Now let's come back to the supply chain. And you mentioned supply chain, just to recap this, it's design, procurement, sampling, R&D where the testing happens, then it goes to the factory, the MOQ is decided, and then it goes into the supply chain. कि customer तक पहुंच जाता है from a wholesaler or a retailer. Now Siddharth, why do you say that the supply chain is broken?
So what really happens, like I just spoke about, right? Every factory that you have to work with has to be either exclusive to you if you want to build a very, very large apparel brand. And the reason why I say that is, one, if you want to build a fast fashion brand, you will start with lower MOQs. Every large manufacturer that you would go to will not accept that low MOQ. Then you have to again, go back and compromise. So by sort of working exclusively with factories, we solve that problem. Okay. Traditionally, this was not there. We sort of came in and said, let's, just take the entire factory so that my MOQ, because I'm the owner of the factory indirectly, right? I could decide which design, what is the sort of MOQ that needs to be manufactured, because I've covered him for 30 days and told him I'm going to pay you anyways. So there, the MOQ issues is solved.
To be able to get to that threshold of being able to solve for the MOQ issue, what do you think is the right amount of capital to start with?
I think I'm a strong believer. I started with 11,000 rupees in my pocket. So I don't think so a lot of capital is required. You could start really slow by, just trading a few apparel just to understand what sells and what does not sell, right? Even if you had to find out 10 manufacturers around you, go there, request them to sell their leftovers, find retailers, sell them, and see what is it that is selling. Then you understand, okay, these are the products that I will tap upon and start building a supply chain for it to manufacture.
Got it. तो आप बोल रहे हो कि if you go to a factory, if you go to a manufacturer today and you look for their leftovers, and then you pick those leftovers and then sell it to the retailers, you would make a margin.
Absolutely.
Okay. Can you give me the economics behind it?
Easily about 20%.
If you were to pick any one of these categories out of t-shirts, cargo pants and denims, how would you do it? Can you give me an example?
So if I had to pick up t-shirts, for example, I may go to, Tirupur, find a lot of large manufacturers who will obviously have leftovers with them. If there are two sort of things that you could do there. One, they may have leftovers in terms of fabric. So you could tell them anyways, this is lying with you. I will give you my designs. Can you print these t-shirts for me in, 20, 30, 50 pieces batches? And, sort of I will start scaling it with you as and when, I start growing. The second is he may have some readily made t-shirts which is made for XYZ brand, but you obviously can't buy it outright. They will cut these labels, etc. And then you need to sell it to retailers who sell these surplus garments.
Got it. तो आप तिरुपुर से लेके मुंबई में बेचते?
Yeah, that is what I used to do back in 2009-10. Came in, I still remember Sharma Transport's bus, which used to leave at 10 p.m. and drop me at 9 a.m. in, I think, Borivali or somewhere. And then, take a local train, go to these Khar market, every sort of supplier there would know me, even till date, because I've gone to every shop, tell them that, look, I'm from Bangalore, this is what we sort of sell, and build that entire thesis around, getting good credibility to your side.
How do you get this credibility?
I think it comes over time. It does not come just like that. I always say that I've built this entire business on my suppliers' money.
Suppliers' money?
Yeah, absolutely. Because the sort of goodwill and trust that I've built over the last, 17 years has now enabled me, to make my cash flow really, really positive.
Can you talk about your actions? And I'll give you an example of the creator industry. In the creator industry, the way it works is that our partners are basically agencies and brands. And the problem over here is that every brand has a different requirement and they're extremely fussy. But there are some brands that are so good that they would respect your creative liberty. They would work with you just like your factory owner, like a co-owner. And they would make sure that you produce great content. But they would just give you a mandate that, these are our constraints. If you can just operate within these constraints, that would be great. And that gives us an insane amount of motivation to produce the best video possible. For example, Scalar is a brand that we work with. They give us all the liberty in the world to pick the video and they say, Stefan says, if you think this will work, I will bet my money on it. And it always works. Whereas there are some brands which will confuse us with their own constraints and they would put so much limitation that they don't let us be creative. Eventually the video doesn't perform and then they would play the blame game. Similarly, when it comes to the agencies, they look for the small buck. For example, if you do a deal of 100 rupees, they get 20 rupees out of it. But here's where they play with transparency. They would tell the brand that this creator is charging 200 rupees. They would take 20% from the brand and then they would take 20% from you as well. So if you think about it, they made more money than the creator.
Yeah.
So the brand then gets confused because the brand thinks अगर मैंने 100 rupees के हिसाब से KPI रखा था तो ठीक था. But 200 rupees के हिसाब से जो मुझे result आया, that is terrible. So the brand doesn't end up working with the creator. As a result, the relationship deteriorates. And then what we've realized over time is that in the race of this small buck, the agencies lose out on trust. As a result, they're not able to scale. Whereas there's another friend of mine whose name is Ayush Wadhwa. No matter which guy he deals with, he says straight 20%, that's it. Because he believes in speed of doing business. कि मैंने एक डील करा, उसमें मैंने 30 दिन का टर्न अराउंड टाइम रखा, उसके बदले ये है कि मैं 30 दिन में 4 डील करूँ, 20% ही कमाऊँ, लेकिन स्पीड ऑफ ट्रस्ट इतना ज़्यादा रहे कि अगर मैंने गणेश को बोल दिया कि 10 लाख का है तो 10 लाख का ही होगा, जिसमें से मुझे 2 लाख ही मिलेगा. And this simple behavior is so disruptive, especially in an industry where trust is in deficit, that this becomes your moat. Just like this, in the fashion industry, what exactly are the things that people do wrong because of which they lose out on the trust of the suppliers, if not the customers, which then causes problems?
So I think one is being true to whatever you promise, right? From day one, we said we're going to launch new styles every day. We kept that promise. We said our returns and exchange is going to be hassle-free. We've worked really hard day and night to make sure that it is hassle-free, at least to the 99% of the people. Third is that we've always believed in true and honest pricing. And we don't want to be a brand which is always tagged with discounts. Right? Even today, if you go on our website, there'll be just one small section which has some discounts on it. 90% of the products won't have discounts because we believe in true and honest pricing. Traditionally, when brands have been manufacturing, they always knew that 30 or 40% of my collection is going to sell at full MRP. Then 30 to 40% is going to sell at maybe 30% discount. And the leftover, 30, 40% may sell at 70% discount. And taking everything into consideration is how they have kept their pricing on the front end, right? And over a period of time, if you're a consumer of that brand consistently, you exactly know when is this product coming under discount. And you've lost on that trust that you hold, right? So being consistent and honest is the number one thing, I think, in any industry. Just like you said, right? Working with one person who was charging you 20%, but, giving you content, working with speed, he was not losing out. It's just whether you make 1,000 rupees in revenue or 100 rupees in revenue, what is your bottom line? If it is similar, then you don't need to really worry about the top line.
But what exactly tempts these entrepreneurs to do wrong things? And can you give me an example of the dark things that entrepreneurs often do that ends up suppliers in trouble and the customers in trouble?
I think, like I told you, one, I'll just speak about apparel, right? One is going really large initially itself because cash flow is everything in this business. If you have not been looking at your working capital, then you are, sort of putting yourself in a trap. So starting really small and then building it slowly is one key element. Two is being able to, sort of do the right storytelling that you want to sell this product. Why have you curated this? Who is the audience? And, why should they buy your product? A lot of people goof up there because they don't really, sort of come out with an identity saying that, this is what we are. With Snitch, we are a trend-driven fashion brand. We are very, very clear that whatever is trending, we will make. Even if men start wearing ghagras tomorrow, we will manufacture a ghagra, right? So we are a trend-driven brand. But with certain brands, the sort of baggage that they hold makes them really, so stubborn that they lose out on the agility.
Can you give me an example?
I would not want to name a lot of brands, but obviously there are brands who've stuck to their thesis saying that yehi bikega aur main yehi banaunga. And once they are stuck in that, black box, becomes very difficult or it's too late for them to come out of it.
Like you mentioned, it would take them how much? You said that it would take them anywhere between
8 months to 36 months just to
Decide.
just imagine if you had to today predict what is the sort of content that will work 8 months later. You will not be able to gauge that. But traditionally, a lot of brands have been doing that even today, and they've been successful also. But will they be successful forever is a question. I believe that the more agile you make yourself as a company and put in a lot of data points to it, it becomes much more easier in increasing the speed of the business.
Understood. Siddharth, you mentioned about working capital, and I also want to touch upon hassle-free returns. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about the working capital problem. First, let's take into consideration the unit economics and then go backwards towards understanding the working capital problem. Let's talk about the unit economics of a shirt that Snitch sells. What's the cost of manufacturing and how much do you sell it for?
For us, we are roughly at about 48% COGS, 52% gross margin.
That's it? Your marketing fees, everything is considered in COGS?
No. I mean, just the COGS of the product.
48% is... Walk me through the entire unit economics, no, please.
So if 52% is my gross margin, marketing would eat out maybe about 20%. 7 to 8% is logistics. And after all operational expenses, we may be anywhere between 7 to 8% sort of EBITDA.
Okay, understood. Now, let's talk about the working capital problem. Your EBITDA is 7 to 8%. So, I'm assuming your net would be somewhere close to 4 to 5%?
Yeah.
Okay. Net profit margin would be 4 to 5%. अब मुझे बताओ ये working capital problem आता कहाँ से है?
So, working capital problem तभी आता है because you don't sort of know the industry. No one's going to give you any credit period. So, you are going to pay, say, 30% advance before manufacturing any merchandise. Once it reaches your warehouse, you'll have to pay out the balance 70%. Supposedly, you've invested 1,000 rupees in one batch of apparel. You've already invested 1,000 rupees, right? It's gone off your bank account to his bank account. Day one, your sales will be 10 rupees. Day two, it is going to be maybe 12 rupees. And it's going to keep building up. You cannot stop manufacturing newer batches because you have to, again, replenish that. So, again, you will put in a lot more capital to manufacture new products. And that is where you get stuck. If you could build that relationship and trust and get some credit period there, supposedly this 1,000 rupees you had to pay 30 days later. In those 30 days, you would have at least sold 100 pieces. So at least the new 100 pieces that you have to manufacture, you don't need to invest new money into it. That's the working capital trap where most of the entrepreneurs get stuck at.
Got it. Siddharth, what do you think about, in fact, chalo theek hai, let's go back to the subject. You spoke about the supply chain being broken because of multiple reasons. A, there's a working capital problem from the entrepreneur side. B, you said that there are a lot of manufacturers who often ask you to manufacture with very high MOQs, and the solution to which would be to go to a place like Tirupur, find manufacturers who've got leftover two things. Either it could be a fabric or it could be clothes. Then you bring those pieces to Mumbai and then sell it to people over here. Build your trust in such a way that you're able to generate more cash flow. Once you have enough cash flow, then you can go on to find a manufacturer. In fact, work with one of the manufacturers in Tirupur itself because now you've built trust with them, and then manufacture and then sell it over here in Mumbai. Okay. So, are there any other problems in the supply chain apart from the manufacturing problem and the working capital problem?
No, I think largely then it becomes how do you choose the right sort of color, design, etc.
Okay. And for that, you've mentioned data scraping.
Yeah, I mean, you will only keep getting better with time, right? there is no brand that can be built within 6 months, 12 months, 3 years. It has to be 10 years and above. So if you have a very, very long horizon, that is when you'll be able to build something really meaningful. Like if today, the day I start thinking of an exit is the day I put poison in my mind and my company, right? If I'm always thinking that I want to be the number one fashion brand, that is period, right?
Wonderful. Siddharth, what do you think about Uniqlo? Because I find Uniqlo very fascinating, and I'll tell you why. Because I find it extremely difficult to wrap my head around trends. Okay, but Apple did this job back in 1990s where they solved for curation very easily by saying that we've got limited choices. So I recently walked into a Uniqlo store, and it was a delight for me. Why? Because you wear one shirt and you've got all shirts over there. No dots or prints or anything. And without my wife, I don't go shopping because I get scolded after that about what the fuck did I just shop. So I just went to Uniqlo and I picked 4 shirts, 2 pants, and I was sorted. Okay. Now, and that got me thinking that there are two philosophies of approaching fashion. And correct me if I'm wrong over here. One is you be the trend setter or you be the trend catcher, where you look for a trend, you manufacture that cloth, and then you put it in the market and the market consumes it. And the other is you say, you know what, guys, we're just going to stick to basics. Okay. And the reason why we're sticking to basics is because basics will never go out of fashion. And we would just make the best basics. People would come buy, which gives us multiple superpowers.
Absolutely. And that's a obvious Japanese trait, right? Like the category that they choose, they will go into the depth of it. They will probably go to the entire root of it and find out if their product is the best in that particular category. They will not really test upon newer trends, newer fabric, but stick to that core, but make the absolute best sort of product quality. I mean, I'm sure they would be spending millions of dollars just in their R&D, which is very, very important.
Yeah. So do you really, is this correct? Like, is my hypothesis right?
Yeah,
there are two philosophies in fashion.
Two philosophies of fashion. One is trend-driven, one is core-driven. With core-driven, again, we've seen a lot of successful brands in the US, right? Not only Uniqlo, you look at True Classics. Again, a company which is just 4 or 5 years back is when they started. Just basic T-shirts is what they manufacture. Today is doing above $250 million in revenue in just like 4 years. Unbelievable stuff. You have to just sort of catch hold of one niche and make sure you're the absolute best there.
My question is, Siddharth, catching the trend is such a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
And there are so many risks involved.
Yeah.
Because if I am given 2 choices, one is the Uniqlo way, the other is the Snitch way, it is quite obvious for me that I would choose the Uniqlo way. And I'll just help you explain why. With Uniqlo, I don't have to scrap through data. I have to invest in R&D, which is a very easy controllable. When it comes to trends, it's not under my control. So I have to consistently catch up with my trend. The second thing is that over here, there is a very high possibility of a working capital deadlock, because once the trend is gone and the pieces are wasted, then they're waste inventory. It's dead stock. Whereas over there in Uniqlo, I know for a fact that the white shirt is going to sell today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, the next year as well. So the risk of a dead stock is quite low. And most importantly, because the trends and basics change so slow, that I have a lot of time to prepare for that time when the trend is going to hit, and then make sure that I deliver the absolute best product possible, right? So my question is, why did you choose the hard way?
Look, there are 2 key points, right? One, when you're limiting yourself, you need to make sure that you are the best. If you ask me, were we the best in one particular category back then, I would have said no. Maybe if we would have invested in a lot of R&D, we would have reached there. We chose trend as the option because 1, it really excites you every single day. 2, you always start thinking forward. 3 is, there was a lot of opportunity there. While, a lot of brands, every brand has their own core, by the way. Even in Snitch, we would have our core, which is just 20% or 30% of the entire business contribution, right? But for Uniqlo, it was always sticking to the core, but their TGs are also defined. They have their own limitations. Like if you had to go for a Christmas night party, very difficult for you to find products there, right? Or if you had to probably go for a wedding and you wanted a floral shirt, you're not going to get it there. So they had their own limitations. So we wanted to keep the TAM as large as possible, and that is why we chose trends.
Got it. You know, in marketing, there's a philosophy that if you try to sell to everyone, you will end up selling to no one. But you're practically selling to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, again, so that again depends on two things. One, what is the risk that you're taking? If your risk is too high, then you're in a trap. If your risk is low, which is your inventory is low, then you're on the right sort of track.
Got it.
So
So
if
your
you're
mode is
able
actually
to-
risk assessment.
Absolutely, yes. So if you don't really, so it's just like, you know, the roulette table, right? There are 36 numbers that you have to bet on. You should exactly know which is the number that you're going to bet higher on and cover up with, you know, smaller bets across so that you're not killing your cash flows.
Understood. Siddharth, let's go back to your unit economics. And you told me that 20% of the money goes into marketing. Okay. And having spoken to so many D2C founders, I've understood that D2C channel is a great head start, but that's not a very sustainable channel to grow. Then I discovered, and this is when I spoke to the founder of Bolt, Varun told me that there is D2C, there is e-commerce, and there is offline. And then he also categorized it when it comes to electronics. And I would want to understand the same thing for fashion, where he said that if you want to understand the taste of the audience and see where you're getting the maximum traction, you go D2Cs because you get every single detail of your customer. Once you get those details, you understand that you are good to go. Then you go to e-commerce, something like an Amazon or Flipkart, and the more reviews you get, the more your CAC will eventually come down. Eventually, you'll become profitable. Once you get that done, and with D2C, you get a data point saying that Mumbai, Delhi are selling insanely well. And if you could just understand, because you're shipping the product to their house, if you can also understand that Malad West or Borivali or Kandivali or BKC is selling insanely well, you form a hypothesis saying that here's where my store should be. Then you open up a small store over there. And then he also walked me through the blueprint of how does he choose the store, if it is an exclusive store or a multi-brand outlet. And that's when we understood that profit तो offline में है, but testing D2C में है, जिसकी वजह से offline immediately profitable हो सकता है. It's not like a shot that you're taking with a blind eye. So walk me through the same process when it comes to fashion. How does it happen? Because when it comes to electronics as well, the categories are too small. And the number of SKUs that they have is also quite significantly small as compared to you. So how do you go about this process? Walk me through your marketing strategy.
So, I mean, again, marketing, I think timing is the most important thing. When we started online, right, back in 2020, offline was completely shut, and that is why we pivoted towards online. Before that, Snitch was a B2B brand. When we started off in online, there were just 3 or 4 players. Offline, traditional brands didn't even have websites. So it became very, very easy for us to attract consumers. And you know, that is how you choose categories, right? When we started off, we had 35 products, 5 boxers and 30 shirts, right? These 5 boxers were sold out within 24 hours of the launch of the website.
Okay.
Right? And that was peak during COVID. Understood that, you know, people want a lot of boxers because they're at home now and it's the most comfortable sort of shorts you could wear without looking vulgar, right? That's when we started doubling down on boxers. And like I told you, like we made these factories so agile that my shirt manufacturing unit can also make boxers or pajamas. So we converted and started manufacturing boxers. Our revenue contribution at that time was almost 50% just from the category of boxers.
What?
And that was the most easiest sort of hack for us to enter someone's wardrobe.
So you were a boxer company first.
You could call that, but that was a category that actually sold really well. ऐसे लग रहा था कि कोविड में किसी ने कच्चे ही नहीं धोए या it was that crazy. Like we used to launch, so we were selling single packs, then we did pack of 3 to increase the AOV. Started selling even better. Pack of 5, your revenue is increasing 5 times and your AOV is also increasing 5 times. And boxers is a no return category. So we started penetrating and that category was almost contributing 50-60% of our revenue. But then came a downfall when suddenly boxers did not sell. That's when we, sort of recalibrated that how do you sort of do marketing, right? And to be honest, we did not have a very, very great team. We were just about 4 or 5 people when we started off. We've learned everything from the internet. I clearly remember I had manifested this also, right? Like in 2021, I've seen your podcast of decoding Zara's $1 billion idea.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I clearly remember when did I see this? What was I doing at that time? And, in fact, I had manifested that maybe one day I would be there. And I truly believe in the power of manifesting, right? Look at so many people. I'm great friend of the Dunzo founders, both Kabir and Dalveer. When I met them about 8-9 years back, they showed me that this is what they're doing. They were on WhatsApp, and I was like, "What bullshit idea is this?" But they knew it in their head, right? You look at every great business that has been built. Businesses are built here, right? And then you start working on how do you want to do it. If you've got that right on your head, then it becomes very, very easy. Look at Elon Musk. If he actually, back then went and said, "I'm going to build SpaceX," people were laughing at him. Correct. What are you trying to say? And look what they've done now. Same with Zepto. I mean, if you are very, very sure on, the best way to look at it is you are sitting there and imagining what am I doing. You might be seeing a cluster of buildings behind me. And that's why you're like, what is he trying to build here? There are already so many buildings, right? But I'm looking at from this side, I feel it's an empty barren land. I could build whatever that I want to. And that's the difference between, a great founder who has built something in his head and has imagined that.
Very interesting, man. And you spoke about the story that you must tell as a brand.
Yeah.
And considering the fact that there are so many brands out there, and you mentioned that you were a team of 4 people, how did you differentiate yourself in that constraint?
So we had only 3 promises, which we kept saying again and again. New styles every day, hassle-free returns and exchange, cash on delivery available. These were the 3 basic things that we started with.
Hassle-free returns and?
Exchanges.
Okay.
And, cash on delivery available.
Cash on
delivery available. Because during that period, people did not trust online brands because there were so many frauds happening. There was peak COVID. Every zone had a red zone, green zone. You didn't know where to ship, where not to ship. There were couriers which were totally broken. So we had to sit and fix up saying that these are the PIN codes that are serviceable. And we will make sure we are only enabling these PIN codes to order. To build trust, right? If I would have taken orders from across all the PIN codes, I would have been in a mess because a lot of orders would not be delivered at all. So just being consistent with your communication, and then, you start building aspiration with good content, good photo shoots, good videos, and those are, things that can be built, but your roots need to be very, very strong. I mean, even 20 years later, people should know Snitch saying new styles every day. They're great experience online, offline, and, they are a customer-centric company.
Got it. Siddharth, tell me something. In 2020, like you just said, you just launched. Yeah. And you're able to sell all these products. Now, there are 2 reasons why this could have been possible. The first reason is the sheer expansion of the market. Yeah. The hunger of the market, where people were just willing to buy anything just for the sake of experiment. Eventually, they loved it and then they bought it again. The second is your ability to build speed of trust. Which one of these reasons do you think was the reason why?
I think the
able to
number
sell so
one
well?
was timing.
Timing.
Timing was the most important thing. I think for any business, timing is the most important thing. You should be in the right place at the right time. A little too early or a little too late may not give you that sort of impact. So, and timing again happens through luck and through the sort of experience that you hold. 2, I would again say trust. We had to build over a period of time. It's not that we had a very large customer support team, who could answer phone calls, etc. It was me and Chetan, who's our CMO, who were on Instagram DM, telling, "Hey, I'm Jenny, how can I help you?" We had to do all these hacks.
I'm Jenny.
Yeah. So we had to sound cool, right? So we did all of that. Even midnight, I'm telling you, I'm looking at these 3 phone numbers and chatting with them. You have to look at these 3. We had a small WhatsApp group, and that's how we were communicating. But then the hunger for building trust was always there, and it is still there. I will never, even till date, tell that we are the best. I mean, I would even want to apologize to consumers who've had bad experience with us, right? My only, sort of thought process there is, am I better than yesterday? If we are that, then we are in the right direction. And that's the only thing that we talk about. Every product that we launch, is it better than yesterday? Every policy that we make, is it, for the ease of consumers? There might be a lot of consumers who've had a lot of backlashes, a lot of bad experience, but we have evolved over the last 4 years. And, we have grown and matured as a company now. Now the sort of decision making that we take is more, I would say, thoughtful, rather than just thinking of unit economics, thinking of, what will we make, etc.
So you're saying that you're optimizing for trust and better systems
Yeah.
as compared to better unit
And I
economics.
think one more thing that happened was Shark Tank. That gave us absolute great recognition, trust, everything that an entrepreneur wanted, right? And luckily the episode went really well. And even there, right, I was supposed to enter the tank at 7:30 in the morning. Couldn't sleep the whole night because of that pressure, and ended up entering the tank at 10 p.m.
Oh my God.
So that was, I just had a, coffee shot, and I just said, Sid, be yourself. And, it is so simple when you think very, very clearly that, you want to remain profitable from day one. You're building a business, not a business to attract investors or, get a good exit for yourself. You need to be very clear in your choices. It took me 17 years to understand what not to do in life, right? So I keep telling this because I knew from day one, if we expanded into different verticals too soon, we would be in a trap. Like a lot of brands I've seen, they've reached a X revenue, they would hit women's apparel. Again, hit a X revenue, they would enter into kids, and then home and furnishing. You get attracted too soon. The ability to hold that is the key. If you are able to say that, no, I'm not going to do this, I'm just going to focus on this one particular category, scale it until the, that like the glass is almost full, then think of another category and build that from scratch.
And I see a lot of fashion brands. In fact, with Digvijay, I used to go to a lot of these fests, and I used to see a lot of fashion brands. Yeah. Now, I did not know a lot about fashion, but when I spoke to them, I understood that they're also distracted. Like the mission statement is not very clear. The story is not very clear. And because the story is not clear, the values are not clear. Because the values are not clear, then the KPIs follow the values, right? And unless you have that crystal clear vision, it's very hard to segregate yourself from the market, because if you yourself don't know how are you different from the noise, how are you going to help the customer differentiate you from the noise from their perspective? It's quite difficult. Now talk to me about, let's go back to marketing. Let's talk about the unit economics. If you sell something via D2C, if you sell something via Amazon on day one versus, let's say, day 1000, 3 years later. And then let's talk about offline stores. If I sell something for 100 rupees, what's the unit economics going to look like if I sell D2C?
Look, again, very unfair to sort of look at only one and attribute everything there, right? It is not necessary that whatever sort of spends that you've done is only towards one channel. There are a lot of consumers who would have seen a great ad on Instagram, but went on Myntra or any other platform and bought us there. But it becomes very difficult for me to then attribute that.
Got it.
Same could be with offline.
Siddharth, I'll tell you why am I asking this question and from what perspective I'm coming from. I'm very close friends with the family that runs Cycle Pure Agarbatti. And I was having this very interesting conversation with one of their marketing executives. His name is Vinod. And I keep sending him pictures of competitor products on Blinkit and Zepto. And one fine day I asked him, why aren't you on Blinkit? So he said, no, the listing fees is too high and it's not really worth it, because they were looking at the attribution in terms of direct equation. How much am I investing and how much am I getting out of it? And that's when they realized that, offline is very, very profitable. And this is something that entrepreneurs often miss out on, that they don't understand that because they've built such a large company and there's a new thing that's upcoming in the market, they don't understand that it is causing a indirect ripple effect to the sales that's happening for a product offline. For example, Fool, I bought Fool from Blinkit only to realize that the product is fantastic and now I buy it offline. But here's where the one question that most of these entrepreneurs ask is, what is a healthy attribution? Like if I spend 100 rupees and I get a CAC of 40 rupees offline, I know for a fact that I'm going to derive X amount of profit. But if I get the same 40 rupees of CAC when it comes to online and then I have to spend with last mile delivery, then I have no profits left. So what kind of a profit margin is healthy for me? And if I'm going to incur a loss. What kind of a loss margin is healthy for me to be able to say, you know what, quick commerce is still working, D2C is still working? Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I mean, it does make sense, but at least from my perspective, you have to take 2 steps back and first think, what do you want to build? If you want to build a company which is highly profitable, scaling, say, 20, 30, 40% year on year, and, you're enjoying your, work-life balance, that's a great business to do. I mean, then you could just pick up few products, pick up few marketplaces, reverse calculate and keep your pricing accordingly, saying that this is the sort of margin that I want to hold. These are the obvious commissions, logistic cost, etc. This is the marketing and this is how I want to build it. But if you want to build a brand which you are very clear from day one, saying that it is going to be, widespread, I want to build it, giving my everything for the next 5 years and, sort of make that noise, then you need to start really slow. Keep your cost really, really slow. Do as much as you can by yourself. Like I told you, right? We never knew anything about marketing. I didn't know the meaning of RTO when we started Snitch. RTO is return to origin. I did not know the meaning. When the first parcel came back is when I realized, acha, ye kya hai? That's when someone told me that this is RTO, which means customer placed an order but did not, take the delivery. That is why it's come back to you. So you have to really start really, really small. Learn from the sort of mistakes. It's okay. I mean, let it take 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. But if you want to build a very, very large business, then be consistently doing the basics right and keep optimizing on your cost.
Got it.
Like when we started, our return was 40%. Today it's at 13, 14%. When we started, our marketing was almost 30%. But now we brought it down to 20 and it'll start going lower. The main thing is, are you going in the right direction? So it's very difficult to sort of say how much of marketing is good enough. I think if your gross margins are around 65%, you could go up to a 30%.
In marketing? Yeah. Got it. Are you talking about D2C or overall?
Overall, I think D2C specific, then 65 to 30 is a good ratio.
65 to 30 is a good ratio. But ये offline में आते आते कैसे बदल जाता है? Like for the same piece of product, how is the margin different from offline versus online?
So today we spend 0 rupees on offline marketing, right? Everywhere we open a store, it's just a simple announcement on our social handles and messages to our consumers saying that Snitch is now available at so and so location. Choosing the right location is the most important thing. We built in a tool which could probably tell exactly that if I'm sitting in your office here, at this pin code, if I open a store, what is the sort of revenue that it will make? What is the sort of size that I could opt for? And what is the nearest competition looking like, right? That ability today, because we've spent, so much over the last 4 years, gives that, sort of ability to go zero marketing on offline. And everything that we've spent over the last 4 years is now getting attributed towards offline. And as we start scaling offline businesses and build, vertically good online categories, the gross margins is just going to increase.
Bro, I'm wondering how you said that with a straight face. Yeah, we've built a tool that can tell us how many customers we have and how much each store will generate. By the way, guys, the last time he told me this was just during the break. I was mind blown. I was like, dude, what the hell is this? Like, how did you build this? Now tell me, Siddharth, what is the logic behind this magical tool which is able to tell you how much revenue you could generate if you open up a store in XYZ location? That is insane.
So we've served over 3 million consumers. Right? So I know exactly 3 million consumers across different pin codes. We've mapped it with pin codes that exist on the Google map. Now, any pin code that I tap on, I know exactly how many consumers do I have. In this radius, overall, there are 6 pin codes. What is the sort of total number of consumers that I have? What is their average order value been like over the last 4 years? What is the sort of retention that they've got over the last 12 months? How many times have they bought in the last 12 months? And then the system will exactly tell you whether this is a high potential, low potential, or a no sort of a location.
तो ये जो डेटा कलेक्शन जो सारी चीज़ें थी ये आपने अननोइंगली करी कि अनोइंगली करी कि ये कभी काम आएगा?
Unknowingly किया था because we were always online first. So obviously data तो आ ही रहा था. It is just when we decided to go offline, we went back and started looking at data, and that's when Aniket, who's our CBO, plotted this entire thing.
But would you have got this data had you sold via e-commerce?
I mean, it is very, very difficult to trust someone else's data, right? I will
Talk
never
to me
do
more
that.
about that.
Yeah, I will never do that. There are certain tools which are readily available today which could give you these insights. But I would not want to trust them just because I think it's a sales proposition for them, right? They might build a crazy tool which will give me high conviction, but I will not want to risk it unless I have verified it through my data. And that is why we chose to build it internally, right? Everything that we've done over the last 4 years, like I told you, the first thing that we think of is it good for us? If it is good for us, then let's think in that direction and build something which is scalable and which makes more sort of logic. If you had to outsource this, I had to give this data to someone else, which is very, very precious and might be misused.
So, Siddharth, had you sold all your products via e-commerce, would you get this data?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, through
Pin code level
marketplaces. By e-commerce, do you mean marketplace?
Marketplaces.
By marketplace, you don't get these insights.
Yeah, that's what I was asking.
Yeah.
तो वो data नहीं मिलता, तो which means what? If a founder has to start and if that person has this vision of going offline, which is highly profitable, that person must spend a lot of money going D2C.
Not really. I'll tell you, Ganesh, it is very, very simple. If you choose marketplace as an option, go there, build a product market fit there. You know, these are the SKUs that are top performing. These are the sort of, categories that you're in, which are doing really well. Now you start your own website. Start really slow with marketing because already you have a presence somewhere. People may know you. And that is when you start the second channel and then offline. So it is not very, very complex if you actually sit and think about it. But patience is the number one thing which most people don't have. So you need to build that patience inside you, saying that I'm going to give 5 years, 10 years, and not just a 2-year stint and think of an exit. So if you are very clear on choosing your path, any path, according to me, is amazing, right? I have seen so many brands which operate into B2B, which are just manufacturing and selling, and they're doing anywhere between 50 crores to 500 crores, making anywhere between 5 crores to 50 crores per annum, which is not a wrong choice. It is just that a lot of people believe in curating their own brand when and it is not very easy to do that also.
True.
Right? So it is all on your choices and how much effort are you going to do to put it. I mean, tomorrow if you decide that I'm running thinkschool, parallelly I will start a fashion brand, it's never going to get successful unless you shut down thinkschool and actually sit there and start it from the scratch.
That's so interesting, man. There are so many different philosophies. It's just that you have to stick to the philosophy that suits you the best.
I mean, I keep telling I was making more money before starting Snitch than I am now. But I chose this because I knew what is the sort of large threshold I've kept for myself in the future. So it is all about your choices.
That's very interesting. But tell me something. I was just reading through Zara's numbers, and if I'm not wrong, they did about 2,000 crores in revenue.
Yeah, 2,100, I think. 2,100 or 2,400 in FY.
But their profits were close to 200 crores odd. And then they, I think, have 11 stores, right?
22.
22 stores. But if you do the math, it comes down to a very less.
No, they have about 40 stores, sorry.
So 200 crores in profits with 40 stores comes down to just 5 crores
Yeah.
in profit.
Yeah.
So if is Zara doing something wrong?
No, I don't think so. Zara is not doing anything wrong, I believe. I mean, that's a brand that I have the users' respect for, man. They've survived, 2 world wars.
Yeah.
So they can't do anything wrong. I think, one, they've not really focused on India as a market. And 2, inflation happened in Europe and US, and they started attributing that towards India also. But Indian consumers are very, very different, right? They will not just buy a product because it is Zara, right? They will apply their common sense. So if you're building a brand in India, you need to be very, very, rooted towards Indian mentality and then try and build that.
Because भाई मैं Zara गया था अबू धाबी में, दुबई में, जापान में और यहाँ पे इंडिया में. मुझे more or less same collection दिखा. Abu Dhabi में तो it was insanely expensive. In India is also comparatively it's insanely expensive. And then I was just thinking that if I were to go to a Snitch, I'm able to find more variety. And Zara somehow is going more towards streetwear, which I don't know is suiting the Indian taste or not. But then I went to Abu Dhabi and there I saw that they had the same collection. So I don't know, and this could be an amateur's guess that maybe they're just applying one size fits for all. Because if you look at Zara, they are present practically in every hotspot in the country. There isn't a single India one person who says that, I don't know about Zara or I haven't shopped from Zara. So their awareness level has peaked. Beyond this, it's India too, which is never going to shop from Zara. Now, अगर आपका awareness level peak है, अगर आपका pricing for that particular unit of cloth आपने peak कर दिया है, you are charging the highest in the market and you're present in all the hotspots and you're still sitting at a profit of about 5 crores per store.
Again, look, Zara in India is operated by a third-party company. So it is more like a B2B sales that Zara does to the Indian company. And the numbers that we're talking about is the number that the Indian company is making, right? It's not their global number. Obviously, when they ship any product here, they would be keeping that margin there and then ship it here.
Understood.
So it is more like a B2B channel. It's more like a
Understood.
franchisee business, right? Because then you already kept certain margins and then shipped it to the franchisee.
Because I'm just trying to understand that if Zara is present in all these hotspot, awareness level is high, Zara has kind of achieved this product market fit.
Yeah.
But, and I could be completely wrong about this, but I don't see the same agility when it comes to Zara India.
Yeah, because again, like I told you, focus is very, very important. Their focus is not only in India, right? They're a true global brand, who's got maybe 2,000 plus stores across 50 different countries. So for them, the focus on India is maybe not that high. And this is what that they want from, this particular country or pin code or whatever that they think of. And I think that is why a brand like Snitch has great opportunities.
Exactly.
There, right?
That's what I was coming
So
to.
for a customer like in the tier 2 and 3, either it is, unaccessible or unaffordable or, maybe, not relevant also to an extent. But there, a brand like Snitch could open, 10 stores in Bangalore. I could go to, Hubli, Dharwad, Belgaum, any sort of tier 2 and 3 cities across there also without any hesitation because my price point, my category and my TAM loves me too.
तो Zara ने एक benchmark और एक opportunity create कर दिया है. That they've set this benchmark for fast fashion, which was seemingly unknown to India before they arrived, which has given the likes of a Trent, a Westside, a Snitch, a huge opportunity to tap onto that mega trend because although they've created this mega trend in India, they've left a very big white space in terms of the pricing as well as the location, which then can be capitalized by the likes of Snitch, Trent and others.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you really spend a lot of time and understand businesses, it'll make you really, really sharp. And you could get that speed advantage, right? To give you an example, Westside was started in 1998. I think it's 25 years old now. It took them 12 years or 13 years to reach where we have reached in 4 years. So I mean, again, it is all about timing. It is all about the sort of speed that you could generate in your organization and go faster.
It is so fascinating to know that Westside took 12 years to reach the 500 crore mark.
Yeah, I mean, it again depends on the timing, like I told you, right? That was a different.
Take the credit. It took Westside 12 years to reach 500 crores. Zara is sitting at about 2,000 crores, and it took you just 4 years to go from 0 to 500 crores. That is insane, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I told you, our belief from day one is been very, very clear. I'll give you a very short story. Like Aniket, who's a CBO, I knew him through Dalveer, who's the co-founder at Dunzo. So I think it was year 1 of Snitch. I was speaking to Dalveer. I told him, "Yaar, dekh, main धंधे वाला हूँ. मुझे product बनाना आता. I don't know how to corporatize this." But we're doing phenomenally well. We've already hit 100 crore mark within 18 months. He was also stunned. Ke, yaar, wow. Then I told him I need someone who could sort of help me. He told me I have a guy who I know really well. His name is Aniket. He's on a break. And I was like, "ठीक है, just connect me to him." Connected. We had a conversation. He came up with data points, etc., and told me that, yeah, I've seen so much on the internet about you, and I think I could add a lot of value, and I will be a consultant. So I was like, okay, do consultancy. Week 1, he was there for 1 day. Week 2, he was there for 2 days. Week 3, he was there for 3 days. Over a period of 7 weeks, he was there almost every single day. The only question that I asked him was, do you think this can go to 1,000 crore within 3 years? He told me absolutely yes. And that is when I told him, please, come on board and, let's create this rocket ship. And, having the right sort of talent team is very, very important. I think I'm the most, sort of dumb person in the organization, if I have to say so. My only, sort of objective is to throw numbers, to throw vision, to just talk about the impossible. And when you start doing that, people will come up and say, hey, you know what, I'm going to build this. It becomes so easy. And, at that time, it is also very important if you have a intern who's coming up to you and telling you that, you know what, this is a problem that I find and I think I can solve this. You need to give him that opportunity to actually solve it. Yeah. Whether it is cricket, whether it is entrepreneurship, whether it is life, right? Opportunities, when given at the right time to the right person, just betting on his belief, right, could create, very, very strong players or leaders.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, man. Now, I want to go back to offline and online, Siddharth. If an entrepreneur is spending time in e-commerce, what exactly is the methodology to crack e-commerce in the first place, especially when it comes to marketplaces like Amazon and Flipkart? What would you advise a fashion entrepreneur to start with?
I mean, look, first of all, these channels don't work for fashion. The channels that you have to choose is Myntra, Ajio, because these are more relevant towards fashion.
How good is Ajio, bro?
Ajio is equally good, I would say. I mean, for us, we consider every marketplace equally. It depends on the sort of traffic and retention that they can generate. So
I was speaking to Varun from Bolt, and he told me that Myntra has a much higher AOV as compared to Amazon, simply because people are coming there for fashion. Okay, so have you seen that happen when it comes to Myntra?
Any day. I mean, Myntra is much, much larger. So obviously, they are the largest fashion platform. So that's the best place you could go out and at least start. Then take inputs from there and build your own e-commerce website.
Cool. Let's talk about the basics of Myntra. If a fashion entrepreneur has to do insanely well in Myntra, let's jot down the basics. What's the way to grow?
First is to start. I think that's the most difficult thing to do, right? A lot of people think of ideas in their head and sleep, but morning it's flushed out. I think start. Second is start really small. Don't have, you could have the highest of ambitions, but you should take the most limited sort of risk, maybe 10 SKUs, maybe 20 SKUs you start with, and small MOQ. Wait for some sort of organic growth of that particular product and not really just push it by marketing. Platforms may push you, but you have to sort of pull back and say, I want to see what is the organic reach like. And then start building a strong community over, Instagram and all the other social platforms that you want, which is the core ethos of your brand, right? Whatever that you want. You want to say that I'm the most coolest brand, or I'm the number one streetwear brand, or whatever that you are. The story is very, very important. Marrying that story with, a feedback loop on your platform is the key again, which is you put a collection that is coming out and it is available in the channel that you're selling at.
Got it. You mentioned about MOQs. Yeah. What is a healthy MOQ to start if you have 10 SKUs?
I think you could start as low as 50 to 100 pieces per SKU.
Bro, YouTube का भी ना बहुत ही सिमिलर है. बट क्या है ना, मुझे YouTube समझ आता है, बट मिंत्रा के केस में आप मुझे एक्सप्लेन कर सकते हो. YouTube है ना बहुत सिंपल है. अगर आपके पास 0 सब्सक्राइबर्स भी है तो YouTube एज अ प्लेटफॉर्म आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी देगा. ठीक है, ये इंस्टाग्राम के केस में नहीं है, बट YouTube आपको अपॉर्चुनिटी देगा. आपको बस ये करना है कि अगर YouTube ने 5 लोगों को भी कंटेंट दिखाया ना, वो जो 5 लोग हैं उनको आपका कंटेंट इतना ज़्यादा पसंद आना चाहिए कि उन्होंने कमेंट करना चाहिए.
करेक्ट.
बिकॉज लाइक इज समथिंग दैट पीपल लाइक इज समथिंग दैट यू विल गेट व्हेन पीपल लाइक यू. Comment is something that you will get either when people love you or they hate you.
Yeah.
So comment is a great reflection of how deeply you have touched the sentiment of the audience.
Correct.
So if you could just communicate that feeling through your video, whether that's a funny video or an inspiring video or a documentary, if you could just communicate that feeling, the platform is going to get you more impressions, eventually getting you more CTR, and that CTR will translate into more views. And that's how the flywheel starts.
Yeah.
And as you keep growing bigger and bigger, this just opportunity just keeps on increasing in size, eventually getting you more audience, more visibility, more money. Now, how does Myntra work? Because here I'm thinking, as a content creator, I can definitely produce a different piece of content. But if I'm selling a black t-shirt and there are 10 other brands or 100 other brands which are selling the same black t-shirt, some are very big known brands, some are unknown brands, some are unknown brands with a lot of reviews, and here I am, an unknown brand with not a lot of reviews at all because it's going to be my first sale on Myntra. Does the platform still promote me?
Absolutely. It is equally the same, right? If you've curated 10 pieces of content with 0 subscribers, your hope should be that one particular content is, going crazily viral. It's the same thesis here also, that if you're producing 10 SKUs or 15 SKUs, you should just do your best there, saying that at least 1 or 2 products are just going to be a, super seller for me, which will create this entire business, right? And once that particular product starts selling and never goes out of stock in your warehouse, and you make sure that it does not, you'll start getting a lot more reviews. And the way the algorithm itself works is, 1, how much of inventory that you have, 2 is the reviews. If you maintain these 2, you're all automatically and organically being on top.
But how does this flywheel start? क्योंकि अगर मैंने content बनाया है तो लोगों को तो फ्री में देखने को मिल रहा है.
Correct.
लेकिन यहाँ पे अगर मैं टी शर्ट बेच रहा हूँ तो उसको 500 रुपये का ट्रांजैक्शन करना पड़ेगा टी शर्ट खरीदने के लिए.
Correct.
So how do you establish that speed of trust? Because I don't remember a single product that I've bought from Amazon or Myntra without having a look at the reviews.
The number one thing is, it is going to take you time to get reviews unless you're going in for a fake review, which is making someone transact and then putting reviews on it. So you have to do it organically. And number 2 is, when you're choosing your category, choose a niche and see the perfect sort of gap which is available. For example, if you decide I want to make, say, t-shirts, for example, then see the sort of top sellers on Myntra. What is the price point? What are the products looking like? Can you make something which is better at that similar price point, keeping your price point as a moat? Or the other thing is, I will not keep price point as a moat, but I know what is selling the best there. I will make the best sort of t-shirt there, but charge a premium for it. That also works. It is just that, people need to find it attractive, because e-commerce is all about your visual appearance, right? If you can make it look very attractive, there is an obvious thing that, people will click on it and make that transaction happen.
Got it. Understood. So it's basically like YouTube only.
Absolutely.
अच्छा product बनाओ, reviews लो, grow करो.
Absolutely.
Got it. Is it any different for Ajio? Just like Flipkart?
It is all the marketplaces are, very, very similar.
Siddharth, now let's talk about a different category. And like you mentioned, now you've ventured into shoes, fragrance, sunglasses and bags. Which is the category that you're absolutely bullish about?
I think all the categories we're absolutely bullish about, and that's why we've started. I'm a strong believer that businesses are built vertically. So whenever we've thought of category, we've just thought of that one category as a vertical, and then seen, what is the sort of competition available, what is the sort of, gap that we could fulfill in, and how can I upsell this product to my existing consumer, right? Since we are going offline now aggressively, becomes much more easier to make the basket size even larger. A fragrance kept near the checkout, a cool bag which is around the store, which gives you that complete look. A footwear, again, a great, category to be in. So, all of these choices, but whenever we start really small. We first test, the sort of product line that we're venturing into, then crack the supply chain, then double down. Even if it's going to take me a year, I'm okay with it.
Walk me through this testing process.
Again, launch, say, maybe 10, 20 SKUs with very low MOQs, even though my cost of goods is really high.
Only online or offline?
Online first becomes easier because your inventory is in one place. Becomes much more easier for you to, ship out faster to all the zones. So obviously online first. Start really small and, see the top sellers, see the ones that sold at very large discounts, discard them, and then start building products which actually got good traction.
Got it. So Snitch, at the heart of it, right now is a fast fashion brand which is selling clothes, and now you are venturing into shoes, fragrances, bags, and sunglasses. Okay? Let's understand your customer persona first, and then I want to understand the thought process behind all of these other categories. So, who exactly is your customer? Let's start with the age and then go down.
So I think anyone in the age of 18 to 35 is our ideal consumer, right?
Okay.
Who's digitally savvy, who likes being trendy, because everyone wants that right swipe on Tinder. Everyone wants their Instagram fresh to feed to look really fresh. 3 is someone who not only wants to look good but also feel comfortable in that clothing. Income could be anywhere, earning maybe 30,000 to 3 lakhs a month. Mostly, consumers would have two-wheelers, or a few may have cars, who commute. This is the mode of commute that they would choose. If I have to picturize mostly working or self-employed. Yeah, so these are the obvious consumer traits.
India one.
Large, I think any brand, right? It's like a pyramid. You have to start from the top. There is no brand which can tell I'm a tier 3 brand and I will only build there. It is impossible. Every brand is a pyramid. If that was the case, Mercedes-Benz is sold highest in the tier 3 cities, right? They'll never start there. Same with Maruti. Everyone has to start from the top. So tier 1 or the metros are your number 1 consumers. And India is so diverse that every metro will have tier 1, 2, 3, 4 in terms of the income class.
Understood. Okay, so now I've understood the customer persona. Now let's go down to understand the gaps in each category. Okay, let's start with shoes. Shoes में कौन सा gap बचा है, bro?
I think footwear is a category which is untapped again.
Okay. Why do you say that?
You name me 5 Indian brands which are doing phenomenally well.
Bata, Red Tape.
Again, not Indian. Red Tape, yeah.
Indian तो पता नहीं, but Woodland, Red Tape, Bata, Hush Puppies तो Bata का ही है.
Yeah, will you wear them? How many of these brands?
Baka Buki.
Yeah. How many of these brands will you buy?
Bro, I actually don't buy any of them.
Exactly the point.
I go to Zara, whatever I find, I just get it.
Yeah, exactly the point, right? I'll tell you why did we start these categories and what is the sort of thought process. Imagine, I'll take international brand's name, maybe Superdry, right? When you imagine Superdry, you're thinking of hardcore functional products, t-shirts which have these huge graphic prints on it, cargo pants which are really heavy and, army sort of a product line. When you think of, some formal wear brand, you would just imagine, shirts, chinos, blazers, etc. But when you think of a Zara, you would really not know what are you going to buy unless you enter the store. You might buy a footwear, you might buy a denim, you might buy a fragrance, you might buy anything that is available there because you connect with the brand Zara. Right?
Correct.
And that is what we are trying to build. And that is why, we are trying to enter different categories because we want to create a persona around Snitch itself that, you start resonating with the brand and it becomes much more easier for you to choose this as your, one-stop solution.
Got it. So, आपका gap इसमें क्या है shoes में? Do you think there are less brands in the market or the price or what is it?
We want to sell a brand. No consumer brand can be built over price or anything apart from being a brand, right? So we want, as a brand, we want to be a complete men's lifestyle brand, at least for now, before we venture into different segments. So for us, it is very clear that we want to build the business vertically. If I am making, X number of rupees by shirts, then I've started denims to make the extra, 20% of it. Then I've added chinos to make the extra 20%. Every business is, separate for me. Every category is very, very separate. And that is how we build the entire business. Then it becomes very easy for you. So whenever we think of footwear as a category, we've seen what is trending, what is the sort of gap in terms of product range and, the price point, and then curated a collection of it, doing a very small litmus test, basis the sort of data that we see, we will start doubling down on the supply chain and get more products
Got
around.
it. Can
the
you
same.
just walk me through one such product line that you've spotted the gap for, looked at the price, and then launched it?
See, like I told you, right, the start itself, we never wanted to be a boxer brand. But when we started, we were selling, the number one category for us was boxers. And we had to kill it within like 12 months because people were not opting for it. So agility was important. We had to shift and get other categories up, right? So I think even the same with cohorts. Like when we started, we were one of the only brands which were manufacturing cohorts and selling them because people were at home. We knew, people are doing house parties now and during COVID, and they want to wear something which is cool and comfortable. But even that category is not so successful now. So, I mean, you have to be like, footwear is a category which is very large. It's not going to get killed at all. Everyone is going to wear footwear, right? So we knew the TAM is very large. Now, the second point is what are the gaps that are available? You have to just look at the brands which exist. What are they lacking and what have they done really well with? And then come up with a collection which blends, both these learnings, and you could create a large business there.
एक example दो ना मुझे, एक collection का आपका, so that I can understand the thinking behind it.
So I'll tell you the example of footwear itself, right? Like we launched our first collection last year, which was just about 12 SKUs. We were online only then, just had one retail store. Online, since we had a strong customer base, people started buying.
कौन से footwear थे?
These were just sneakers.
Sneakers, okay.
Yeah, very casual sneakers. So started with that, took data points, spoke to a lot of customers who bought, tried and understood what was their feedback. Few told us it is really cool. Few told us, it is really comfortable. Few told us it is cool to look at, but not very comfortable. So then we took those data points, built a stronger supply chain towards it, and now launched a larger collection. And now, since we are there offline also, people can actually look at it, feel, wear, and, obviously there's a good new category that we could build.
And this also happens through data scraping.
Absolutely.
Got it. Understood. So does the same thesis apply to all other categories as well?
Yeah.
Understood. So let's not go around it. Siddharth, the last thing that I want to cover is store economics. A lot of people do not understand, and even I had the same notion back then, that the store is so expensive. Like D2C is much better, only to realize that D2C is not that good as compared to a store. And what I've come to realize is that, and this is something that came from the founders of CocoCard as well as Vedant, who told me that, bro, if you just get the right store at the right location, it's going to be insane. So walk me through one of your store economics so that people can understand that जितना आप rent भर रहे हो उसका कितना return मिल सकता है, especially when it comes to a fashion brand.
So look, again, it is very different. I mean, for us, since we have been online 4 years, people are aware of the store. So it becomes very easy for us to attract footfalls. Otherwise, if you are just starting with offline, that's the big bet that you're taking, unless, you have enough capital to survive. So the number one metric is the rent to revenue ratio.
Rent to revenue ratio.
Yeah. So if you are, paying X rent, this is the sort of revenue that you should do.
What's the healthy
For
ratio?
a brand like us, we take as 10 to 12%. For a brand which is got higher gross margins, could go up to 18% to 20%. There are brands which go up to 30% also.
Oh, really? Can you name these brands?
I mean, no. But yeah. I mean, there are brands which, their gross margins are high, so they can afford it, which is not wrong at all, right?
Give me the basics with Mumbai as context.
Yeah, so I mean, Mumbai, again, there are so many deep pockets. It is best to choose a location. If you have nothing, right? You are just sitting at your home and now you decide you want to start off a store. First, you will start sourcing products that you think will sell, you can sell in retail. Then spot a location. Maybe the best thing to start off is around your residence, because you know a lot of community there, people around it. You don't have to do a lot of research because you already know that community mein itne log reh rahe hain, this is the age group, this is the income level, etc. Start a store there. Becomes very easy for you to then keep growing from there, then choose the next location which is similar to this, etc. But if you're a brand who's been there for a very long time, then you need to, obviously have that sort of experience which you're giving consumers online also. So for us, rent to revenue matters. Scheme of the building, which is what is the facade, height, obvious trades that we want.
बताओ
to
ये
have.
obvious traits क्या है?
So, I mean, for us, we are very clear that at least 25 to 30 feet should be the facade. 10 to 11 feet of clear height. Should not be very, very, vertical sort of a building. Should be 2-3 floors max.
Why so?
I mean, consumers don't really go up till 5th floor, then go to 4th, then go to 3rd.
But अगर building
Because-
बहुत tall रहा और आप ground floor पे हो तो आपके लिए तो advantage है.
हाँ, like if you're taking the whole floor, if you're only taking the ground floor, it's okay. I mean, for us, we do slightly larger format stores because of the sort of width that we have with SKUs. Someone who's got 30 SKUs could start with a 400 square feet also.
Because here I see your store at Infinity. बाहर से देख के समझ में नहीं आता है कि यहाँ पे Snitch है. But then once you get inside, it's located on the first floor of Infinity. And that's when I discovered, oh my God, Snitch hai yahan pe, and that's when I went shopping over there. So, and this is something that the founders of CocoCard told me, that they said that if you have a customer persona and you see that there is a brand in a different category which has the same customer persona, just blindly go and put out a store on the ground floor of a mall right alongside that particular store. For example, when it comes to CocoCard, Zara ke jo customers hai, their customer persona matches with CocoCard's customer persona. So they're like, bro, our hack is pretty simple. Because we have the leverage of capital, we would just put up a store as close as possible to a Zara or a Starbucks. That is enough to drive enough footfall. Eventually, we'll be able to sell very well. Do you also follow something very similar?
No, I mean, we've again learned it the tough way, saying that follow your own data and not someone else's data. Right?
Okay. Can you give me an example? Did you mess up somewhere?
Not mess up somewhere, but we've seen like all Zara stores don't do phenomenally well. There is a Zara store in Surat which just does 10% of what it does in Palladium. If I had to place it there, then it'll be a wrong call, right? Yeah. So I think the way we look at it is, number one is our data point. How many consumers do we hold? Which is an obvious thing that if I have 2,000 consumers in say this particular pin code, I know even if 30% is the retention rate, how many are going to shop from me? And through the malls pool, how many new consumers will I sort of attract? And plus, 3 is there are a lot of consumers who've seen us but never shopped because they didn't want to buy online. Now they can go to the store and experience it. So for us, data towards a neighborhood is not very, very important. To give you an example, our first store in Bangalore is on a semi-high street store. Even till date, there is no absolute retail presence across 500 meters up and down.
Okay.
We chose that location. I was passing by Jayanagar, saw a to-let board. The first store that we were doing, right? It said 2,200 square feet. 3,65,000 is the rental. The first thing that hit my head was, even if we do 7-8 lakhs sort of revenue, we'll be profitable. So we decided to take up that place. Took about 2 months to design it. July 15th is when we launched, and within 15 days, that store hit 50 lakhs in net revenue.
Oh, wow.
That was a strong brand pull because there's absolutely no sort of retail presence there. And again, I think art of distraction helps you amazingly well in marketing, at least, right? Same with online. If you're scrolling on Instagram, you see something which is distracting you, different from the obvious content that you're watching. It is for sure that you will spend extra 5 seconds. Correct. The same way when you're passing by a street which is just barren, suddenly you see a flashy store in between. That's a distraction. So I think taking the right bets is also very, very important. And starting with very, very low fixed and operational cost is also very important.
Got it. Siddharth, when it comes to a fashion brand like yours, what exactly is the metric of success? Because when it comes to something like Bella Vita perfumes, it's obviously the repeat rate. But when it comes to Snitch, there's a possibility that I like this trend, so I go and shop. But then the next trend that comes up, I don't like that trend so much, so I may not shop from Snitch. But that doesn't mean that I don't like Snitch. Yeah. So what exactly are the parameters that you gauge, or any fashion brand must gauge, especially in the fast fashion space, to be able to gauge their success?
I think number one is, so I'll take 2 steps back, right? We have over 10,000 styles on the website and app.
10,000?
10,000 styles if you cumulatively look at, right?
Okay.
Over the last 4 years, more than 10,000 styles have been produced. Typically, a brand manufactures anywhere between 500 to 1,000. Okay. So that sort of shows up that we have everything and anything for everyone. Which means that if you are coming on the website, there will be something that you may like, versus, someone else coming in there. We want to curate everything for everyone, for every single location. That, whenever I think of Goa, I should think of opening the Snitch app. I think of Christmas, I want to think of Snitch app. I'm thinking of a wedding, I have to open. This is going to be my go-to app that I want to open in, right? How do we do that? Again, very, very complex because, managing so many SKUs is the biggest challenge. Not, having a lot of dead stock.
What's your dead stock percentage?
We would be anywhere between 3-4% above 365 days.
What are you saying? 3-4%?
Yeah.
Bro, Manevar is at 2% dead stock.
Yeah.
And you guys are at 3-4%. That's crazy, bro.
No, again, that is over a period of 365 days.
That is because of your learning algorithms.
Yeah. And again, if you look at above, say, 6 months, then it will be barely about 7-8%. If you look at above 180 days, then it will be... So, largely what happens above 365 days is the category that we operate in. And so, like I told you, winter wear is one category which lasts only 2 months, right? There are chances that this has to be, sold only the next year. And that is why, we may be at that 2-3% sort of a thing. But we always keep provisions for that in our MIS.
What do you do with this dead stock?
Largely, it would be either in 1 or 2 single sizes in different sort of, designs. So it's not something that is a complete unsuccessful design which is sitting on the inventory. Largely, it will be broken sizes, just 1 piece, 2 pieces, etc.
So what do you do with them?
So either we try and liquidate through marketplace, or the end is a CSR activity that we keep doing every year.
Got it. Understood. Siddharth, the last question that I had for you is, tell me what are the biggest mistakes? We were at, what are the parameters that one is supposed to gauge to assess the success of the company? तो यहाँ पे आपने पहला बोल दिया कि डेड स्टॉक का कितना होना चाहिए रेशियो? Less than 5%?
Again, depends on what sort of brand that you're into.
Define a few categories and give me a number, no, please.
So if it is a, very, very slow core, then you could hold inventory up to 6 months, 9 months also.
Like Uniqlo.
Yeah. But I don't know the exact number of Uniqlo, so I will not comment. But for a fashion brand, we are at, say, about 45 days.
45 days. Got it. And for the store, like you mentioned, rent to revenue ratio should be between 10 to 12%.
Again, depends on your gross margins. So you could go as high as you can if your gross margins love you.
At a 50% gross margin, you said 10 to 12%.
You could go up to 20 also to start off, because every store will keep growing year on year, right? So SSG is another thing that you have to keep monitoring.
What is
which
that?
is same store sales growth.
Should it be growing every year?
Yeah, at least by 7-8% it should grow.
7-8%.
Yeah, even a bare minimum.
Any other parameters that somebody should take into consideration?
No, then it is all about your interiors, your VM, making sure the right inventory is at the right location, right? The advantage that we have, that because we are a digital first brand, I exactly know that, this particular SKU will sell in Gujarat but will never sell in Delhi. And, this SKU will only sell in Delhi but never sell in Gujarat. So that also gives you that advantage being digitally first, having that data.
Last question. ये better question है. How was your Shark Tank experience? Because I almost forgot that you became extremely popular after Shark Tank. What was the experience like?
It was the most, amazing moment of my life, I would say. Because 1, it gave you validation. 2, it built a lot of trust. 3, everything there was free. So I didn't have to pay a penny to go there. My travel was taken care of. My food was taken care of. Even had I not got anything out of there, I would have got a lot of learnings. So, that was one of the best moments in the journey of Snitch, which I'm sure will be embarked forever.
Did your sales shoot up?
Obviously it did.
By how much?
We grew almost... so over the last 30 months, we've grown 12x.
12x?
Yeah.
That's insane, man.
During that phase, again, that is a very short-term sort of growth that you could get, right? What Shark Tank did is, we were here, it got us here, and then stabilized us here. And, to a point, it was coming down also. And then that's the time you again, uplift the game with right product, right experience, do everything that you promised, and build business from there.
Who all have invested in Snitch?
Or we had an all five shark deal.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Now, what is your experience with these Shark Tank investments? Because do these sharks really spend time with you, or does their team spend time with you? How does it work?
So I'll tell you, to be honest, you should only use them when you want to either get a good network or you're trying something new, want to get their opinion. But always build your business basis your own gut feeling, because no one is right or wrong here, right? Even anyone that you take as an example cannot be 100% right, but you could take insights from them and just use them, and that's how I'm great friends with everyone, and wherever I feel that I need a sort of help, I would obviously nudge them, but don't expect them to come and run your business. That's not going to happen.
Have you ever sought help from them?
Yeah, obviously I have. In terms of building network, in terms of, maybe understanding certain data points or certain tools, etc. I have.
Give me a few examples of these and I'll tell you why. Because every time somebody raises money, they have some pseudo expectations. For example, they expect that the investor will pay them a visit every year or get them on call or get the investor on call so that the investor can tell them that this is right, that is wrong. Or they would want the investor to have a look at the entire company report so that the investor can give them analysis. And what they don't understand is that just because the investor has put in some money, your business doesn't become his business. So help me understand that once you have investors on board, what is the right way to leverage these investors so that you can propel your business to the next level? And how have you done it?
So, look, again, different people have different theses. I think it depends on what is the size of investment, how many, what is the stake that they hold, etc., etc. Angels will largely back you just, because they are passionate about, creating entrepreneurship, or they believe in your vision, etc. When you're doing a larger investment round, the number one thing that they look at is, how large is the TAM? Where do you fit in there? And, what is your vision like? There is no one who's going to come and sit and do your entire business, right? Unless they've acquired you or own more than 70% of the company. So, for me, I have been very clear from day one that I want someone who could guide me only when I'm taking the wrong route, right? And reroutes me, just like the Google map. I want to be the driver. I put on the Google Maps to a certain location. While I'm going to a wrong direction, can you just reroute me and tell me that, this is the wrong way and you need to come back to your basics.
जैसे आपने क्या help seek करा इन लोगों से? Can you
So I
give me an
think it is
example?
largely towards, no, with the sharks, it has not been that much because, at a point, we also understood that, they have a busy schedule. Only certain points that you really want them to interfere, you would want them to interfere. With our investors currently, we would have chats about, what is the outside world thinking about Snitch, or, what is the next sort of big thing that we want to do, etc. They might help you with getting the right sort of talent, getting you in touch with the right sort of mentors that you want to meet in future, all of those things. But you can't expect someone to come and, drive your business. Look, they have invested money on you just because you sold them a story. And if you can't fulfill that story, it's your mistake. No one else's.
Got it. Thank you so much, Siddharth. I have learned so much, man. And I'm just going to walk you through my notes quickly so that you can tell me if there's anything wrong with the summary.
That's very long.
Yeah, that's pretty long. We started with a few important lessons. You started as a trader, then became a manufacturer, and then started running Snitch. And then you also mentioned something very, very important that every entrepreneur is supposed to keep in mind, that you could be slower, but you need to be better. It's very difficult to scale a fashion business primarily because it's very difficult for you to manage inventory and pick categories. So the moral of the story from the first segment was razor focus is absolutely important. In your case, you stuck with men's apparel and you did not venture into too many things before you...
No, even in men's, we started with certain categories and then started building categories around it.
Got it. And this is after you got a very strong foothold over the existing categories. And then the one thing that you picked over is that men are quick and snappy. So if you have a certain occasion, this person should think about Snitch, and Snitch must have all the things required for that quick and snappy person for that particular occasion. And here's where your previous experience comes into play, where you ran a small store and then you looked at what are the occasions where boys would go and shop. And you had these occasions as going to the gym, going to college, going to party, living in the hostel, and going for an occasion like a concert. Here you had 3 parameters based on which you were able to acquire these products, which was color, silhouette, and trends. And this was largely based on Europe and China. Then once you started with your business, the fundamental reason for you to start this business is because you understood the power of value addition. You understood that if you just keep trading, you would make less money as compared to manufacturing and then trading. And then you understood that you could make even more money and build a sustainable identity for yourself if you build a brand, manufacture, and trade all by yourself. So, and then you spoke about the supply chain of a fashion brand. This goes from design to procurement to sampling, to R&D, then to the factory where the MOQ is decided, and then it goes to the wholesalers, retailers, whichever distribution chain you choose. In procurement, you mentioned that there are 2 ways in which you could get your products manufactured. One is job work, the other is FOB order. The difference between job work and FOB order is that in job work, you buy the raw material, give it to the manufacturer, and they do the manufacturing, packaging, and the rest of it. But when it comes to the FOB, you give it to a buying house, which is what you used to do before, where they would do everything for you, from designing to procuring the raw material to manufacturing it. The cost difference between both these methods is about 10 to 15%, with buying house being more costlier, with buying house being costlier than the job work. And then you mentioned that the supply chain is broken. And here's where you spotted a very big gap in the market when it comes to big brands, where they take anywhere between 8 months to 36 months to decide which unit to sell, which color to sell, which size to sell, and to make that decision and then take it to the market, it takes them anywhere between 8 to 36 months, because of which they're not able to capitalize on trends, which gives a huge opportunity for fast fashion brands like yourself to be able to spot this trend, manufacture a product and take it to the market quickly so that the customer buys it, the market consumes it, and then you can go on to the next trend. Here you mentioned that you look at keywords, you look at hashtags, you look at global trends, and then you look at the WGSN Institute, where you're able to spot all these trends. You zero down on one of these trends, you zero down on some of these trends, and then you marry this with your own data to understand these trends are fine, but which one of these trends will resonate with your customers, and then you decide on your catalog. You also mentioned that anybody could start a business with about 10 to 11,000 rupees. If they don't have too much capital to do all these things, all they could do is go to a place like Tirupur or Ludhiana, get hold of stock, which is dead stock for the factory. And this dead stock could be in terms of the fabric or the products themselves. Buy those products at dirt cheap price, because it's anyways waste for them. Come to Mumbai and then sell it to the people over here, by which you will get more and more capital. And as you get more and more capital, then you can go for manufacturing. And when it comes to manufacturing, you mentioned that when you choose your manufacturer, this person has to operate like a co-owner of your brand. You have to define standardized SOPs so that his job becomes easier. Like you mentioned, the same setup that you have that makes shirts can also make pajamas. You have to help them with skill development so that they can build great products for you, and not just outsource skill development and think that it's their job to do, because if it's their job to do, then you should also expect quality of their standard. So you should also contribute to skill development just like the Japanese companies do to their partners. And then you got to look at compliance and wages. Wages, because if there are no wages, there are no workers. Compliance, because as you become a larger company, compliances are super, super important. And then we spoke about 3 categories that you mentioned are growing. And here's where I asked you, just like biryanis and Chinese, which categories would you pick if you want to pick a growing category? And here's where you mentioned t-shirts, cargo pants, and denims. Then we went to the unit economics of Snitch. And here's where you told me that 48% is your COGS, 20% is your marketing cost, 7 to 8% is your logistics cost, and 7 to 8% is your EBITDA. Is that correct?
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
Okay. And then you have about, and because your EBITDA is about 7 to 8%, your net profit stands at about 4 to 5%. Great. And then we spoke about the 4 key values of Snitch. You said treat people and consumers with respect. You said get it right, do it right. Create leaders in your organization, because no matter who comes in, when they come in, You have to look at them as future leaders so that they can go on to lead the team and they can see the ladder of success as your company grows bigger and bigger. And lastly, you said company first, your values, your interests will always come next. Then we spoke about your competition, which is very, very interesting. Zara does a revenue of about 2,000 crores and you're already at 500 crores, which is absolutely incredible.
And Zara does about 30% men.
30% men, which means you are practically bigger than Zara in men, right?
I mean, I would not want to believe that.
Okay, I would want to believe that in 2 years for sure. And then here also we spoke about the incredible pace at which we've grown. Like it took Westside about 12 years to get to the 500 crore mark. And for you, it just took you 4 years. And that is primarily because of the wealth of experience that you've had from your past. After that, we spoke about the multiple channels that you have and how you choose to operate your stores. The way you pick your stores is you look at all the customer data that you have from the online channel. You understand which areas do you sell very well, and you have a customer base of about 3 million customers. That gives you a good triangulated data that, in Malad West, if you open up a store, it's going to sell 3 crores worth of stock. If you set up the store in Andheri West, it may sell 3.5 crores worth of stock. Once you have a very clear idea, you get to understand counterintuitive places where you could open up your stores. And you mentioned Hubli, because to the person next door, Hubli sounds like a stupid idea. But for you, data says that it's a brilliant idea. This gives you an insane advantage whereby you are able to spot those places which are potential blind spot for your competitors, but you're able to enter that place and you're able to dominate them simply because of your data. And this is also primarily because you use your D2C data. E-commerce does not give you so many intricacies. Because you sold D2C, you're able to get a lot of data, and that data is now enabling you to make better decisions, which also draws a very important lesson that in D2C, at the beginning, you may not be very profitable, but the data that you're getting is eventually going to give you the wealth of wisdom to be able to take bigger and bolder steps, which will eventually become profitable. In your case, it was the data that you got from your online sales, which then helped you open up stores. And now you have about how many stores?
45.
45 stores. Great. And then we spoke about Myntra and Ajio. And here you clearly said that it's just like YouTube. Get hold of a few MOQs. Here you say that it's just like YouTube. Get hold of 10 or 20 SKUs, 50 to 100 MOQs. And you got to start small, focus only on organic growth. Do not engage in paid growth, because if you do that, then the validation will go
A
away.
little bit of paid is okay, but yeah, more focus should be
Little
on
bit of
growth.
paid is okay. Then you said you got to build your own community on your socials, and you got to consistently keep telling your story so that you can separate yourself from the noise. And once whatever transaction is happening via D2C, talk to your customers, get hold of feedback, incorporate that feedback, and then make sure that in the next batch or the next stock that you're presenting to the customers, these feedbacks are incorporated. And then you spoke about the expansion of Snitch, which went into shoes, bags, sunglasses, and fragrance. And here the concept is very, very simple. Just like Zara, where people would like to have a curated outfit, Snitch is also aiming to provide curated outfits where somebody goes for an occasion, because men are quick and snappy, just simply go and buy the entire outfit for themselves. And you also mentioned that there are too many brands in the market which do not have a clear story. And because you guys have a clear story, the brand Snitch by itself, it's almost like Amul selling protein, right? Because the brand story is pretty strong and you want to keep building that brand story in such a way that no matter what you sell, whether that's shoes, fragrance, bags, or sunglasses, people buy into the story of Snitch fashion and not look at Snitch as just another clothing company. And then we spoke about your customer persona, which is 18 to 35, digitally savvy, trendy, who want comfortable clothes, income between 30,000 to 3 lakhs, and may have a two-wheeler.
Again, there, in the age bracket itself, right? One of the great learnings that we've received is if I have to enter someone's wardrobe, or someone's, family wardrobe, the number one thing that I have to crack is somehow enter the 23-year-old first, which is digitally savvy. Make sure that he's got the right purchase for him to then, start speaking about it within his family. And the other key thing that we've learned is when I was a kid, my father was the decision maker for me, right? He used to take me to a shop, make me shop for like 6 months and period. It's over. Today, the 23-year-old is more like the decision maker in the house. His father wants to be cool with the son. That is why he would want him to, sort of resonate and try the brand that his son feels. So if you actually, crack the 23 to a 25-year-old in a household, chances of you getting more share in that family is very, very high.
Perfect. And then we spoke about how you choose your store location. This is about 10 to 11 feet height, 25 to 30 feet facade. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what that means. Can you explain?
Facade is the entry.
Entry. Then you have a rent to revenue ratio about 10 to 12%, which can go up to 18 to 20% as well, depending on your gross margins. But you stand at 10 to 12%. So I would just consider that to be a marker of safety. And then you also spoke about your inventory, which should not go beyond 45 to 60 days. Beyond that, you got to be a little careful.
it could go. It's very, very difficult to control.
If you're a core brand, then it could go, you said, right?
Yeah. If you are selling basics, which is 365 days wear, you could hold up to 6 months also.
Got it. But when it comes to fast fashion, 45 to 60 days is a healthy marker.
Yeah. Always important that you keep it as low as possible, because if you don't have inventory, you cannot sell and grow. So you have to have the right sort of mix.
Understood.
Maybe if you're selling 100 pieces, get in 110.
110. Got it. And then we spoke about the same store sales growth, which should be about 7 to 8%. And most importantly, you should learn from your mistakes and just keep getting better and faster.
Yeah.
Does that sum up our conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. One key hack that I would also, sort of give, a business idea which no one is looking at, right? Everyone is just thinking about D2C, go online, offline, etc. There's a huge supply chain gap in fashion, a huge opportunity in the B2B businesses, right? When I started Snitch, we started more like a B2B brand. So what we used to do is, traditionally, a lot of brands would call, if you were a multi-brand outlet store, for example, you have something called as thinkschool store. You would have 30, 40 brands which you sell inside the store. Every brand will call you 6 months prior and ask you to predict your sales and book stocks. And then they will supply in 6 months, basis the collection that they've curated. There we sort of got in a differentiator, which was we created a small app saying that every single day we will give you new styles. The MOQ could be as low as 25 to 50 pieces, and there is cash on delivery available. That sort of, skyrocketed the entire business itself. Because here the retailer was not worried about depending on, what is the trend that will go on for 6 months, how much do I book today, etc. Because he exactly knows, आज मैंने 25 shirts बेचा है, tomorrow morning I order 25 again. So that again is a huge, huge business opportunity, which a lot of people have never looked at.
Got it. Wonderful, man. Thank you so much for spending so much time.
Absolutely. Bro. Thanks a lot, Ganesh, for having me here.
It was a pleasure, bro. Thank you so much.
Same here. Thank
मैं
you.
तो इतना खुश था कि आज आप आ रहे हो. मैं अभी स्निच ही पहन के आने वाला था, लेकिन कल मैंने स्निच पहन लिया था. मैं बोला अरे कपड़ा मेरा खत्म हो गया.
That's okay. We'll send you some.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much. I'd be very happy to receive it.